Good evening, beer geeks, and welcome to not the first, not the second, but the third live show in a row. And I think we're finishing with a bang.
Right, we're finishing on our tour. Well, it's a bit of a tour of Europe tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So a huge welcome to everybody that's joining our live shows for the first time. I hear this box has sold like absolute hotcakes, so we should have a really great big audience, loads of questions coming in. We'd love to hear from you guys, particularly if you're new to the craft beer channel. So all you got to do is just put a comment in the comments section, and we will try and get to any questions or any shout outs as we go through. We can't guarantee we'll get to everyone, so if you do want to guarantee you get a question or a shout out, you can use the super chat function. And all you have to do there is there's a little button, you can click it and you can donate a little bit of money to our channel and get your question answered at the next possible opportunity. So please do feel free to use that and support what we do. So let's get the drinking order up. The average ABV is high?
Shockingly high.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So please drink responsibly, know your limit, and remember that you don't have to drink them all tonight. We'll talk through all 5, but if you don't want to drink them all, don't feel that you have to. You can always come back after these live shows finish. They're up forever. They're there for posterity. So you can go back and watch that section and drink it if you want. So just ask your questions now and drink later.
JB said, can we open a beer yet? Yes, you can. Drinking order is on the screen right now, so we're starting with Pilky, guys. Crack 'em.
Yeah. Don't wait on us. We'll be welcoming the guys from Põhjala in a couple of minutes once we've explained everything. They're ready and raring to go, and we will be starting with Pilky. We've also got some videos that the guys have recorded that are absolutely amazing, especially for tonight. So that's going to be a lot of fun to check out too. Just so you know, timings wise, we'll go through the 5 beers. Each beer will get about half an hour, and then hopefully we'll have a bit of a Q&A at the end around about 9:30 if you're in the UK. And then we'll hopefully wrap up by 10. It's a bold hope, given on the evidence of what usually happens. So, Bradley, how are you doing? Are you excited about this one?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I've had a bit of a stressful day, so I'm hoping this is going to just wind me down now. I've come in my full military attire, so hopefully I'm blending in with the really.
Was your stressful day that you were with the army today?
No, but when I was a child, I did want to be in the army, but I'm a pacifist, so wouldn't have really worked out. I did have one of my favourite books as a child was the SAS, tiny little survival handbook, which I loved, and it taught me how to build traps and weapons and stuff out of random things. So great book for kids.
We've got a camouflage gag in straight from the off. Happy with that. Thank you, Melton. Somebody's asking if cracking a DIPA open at 4 a.m. is too early or too late. I'd say both.
Scott, where are you in the world where it's 4 a.m.? I saw we've got people from Korea tonight and all over the place. Southern California. Yeah, Norway, Northampton, I think I spotted. Lots of...
all the exotic locations.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and we've also got lots of amazing people from our Discord forum. If you like what we do, you can join our Discord forum by signing up to our Patreon from $1 a month. Support the channel, and you get access to about 250 beer geeks, including me and Brad, posting on there every single day. And that's why lots of people might seem like they know each other in the comments. That's why, because they're all chatting away every day, talking about home brewing. We've got a bottle share channel where we crack bottles and talk about it. We've got a craft beer channel one where we talk about ideas and get content ideas from everybody. So it's a lovely and exciting little platform that we get to talk to. We've got Discord massive. Apparently,
yes,
we're back in the 90s and in a Discord forum. Right, I think that's all the admin. Is that all the admin?
Yeah, we haven't got anything else we need to.
I don't think so. Usually at this point we plug a live show, but we haven't got any more in.
No live show.
This is the final one. So yeah, it's time to welcome the guys.
Sorry, Johnny, I couldn't save you.
I was building up to the big reveal, and then
go on.
Yeah, so I think it's time we brought on the Põhjala guys. We will be cracking Pilky first, so if you haven't opened that already, get stuck in, but we'll be doing it with the guys when they come on. So without further ado, a very warm welcome to Chris and to Peter.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
How are we doing, guys? Are we ready for this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you said it best when you said, let's crack open a Pilky and share it together. So
absolutely. Yeah, let's start with that, and then we'll get into the details. So this is our first beer of the night. What can you tell us about this beer?
Yeah, so Pilky, this is it's our very first craft Pilsner. It's the very first lager we ever made, and we took a long time to do a lager. And this one is kind of, it's lightly dry hopped, but it's all sort of Germanic style hops. So it's a bit of a modern take on a Pilsner, pretty citrus heavy, pretty citrus forward, but like basically a classic reinvented in our opinion.
Named by the gentleman talking. Pilky is his nickname.
Yes, that's true. In Estonian, Pilku is a sort of slang term for a Pilsner, and my name Pilkington can be shortened to Pilky. So,
oh, there you go. Serendipity, you were born to make a Pilsner.
Exactly.
So while we get the aroma of this beer and sink it in, and people can get questions, or we can talk about the flavors. Tell me a little bit about the brewery and where it came from. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers, everyone. Cheers, world.
So, you kick it off, please.
Yeah. So I guess many people who might have known of us are coming to us from the dark beer angle, from the barrel-aged angle, the Cellar series. That's really what we're known best for. But, we've always, when we started off, we kind of had the goal to focus on these stronger, darker beers. But we love drinking the lighter beers as well. So we kind of started off going from both angles.
We'll be later drinking some Baltic porters, and this was one very first beer we ever released was a Baltic porter, and as the beer originates from the area, it was news back then to the beer, most of the beer community, and that's where the dark beer story started, and it led off by brewing, basically in the first stages, the beers that we wanted to drink ourselves, and we thought were missing on the market, and now we brew all big variety of beers that we'll be tasting tonight as well. But yeah, it started from just the desire to bring back the great heritage of the Baltic porter and the dark beer that is very historical to the area. And back then, when we started, 2013, there was not many beers like that on the market.
Yeah, I mean, effectively back then, the Baltic porter is a style that comes from Estonia, as we'll talk later on. But there wasn't really any of them being brewed here. There weren't that many beer styles available here either, because craft beer is a very, very new thing. So, we very first came out with a Baltic porter, bringing that style back. And it was great because when people asked the question, what is craft beer? You gave them like a mainstream macro lager, and then you gave them our first release. There was like no confusion. Like, okay, I can sense the difference between these.
We started as the Gypsies. We released our first beer in February 2013, and the first batch was 650 bottles. And it was actually sold out of 2 locations, and it was sold out to final consumers in less than 24 hours. So it was a very encouraging start.
Wow.
So at first, we were just dreaming of home market, and all of a sudden, a lot of people started to take interest in our beers, and when you start thinking of how the brewery is called, and then the very first beers, Põhjala is a real northern territory, what it means in Estonian, like a dark, cold land up there. And our very first beer was called Ö, meaning night. So it's very like the dark oriented. So, but yeah,
a little bit.
To brew IPAs and all sorts of other beers.
And how did you guys meet? Because I detect a possibly non-Estonian accent in one of you.
Yeah, when me and I'm one of the co-founders of the brewery, and it was a bunch of friends that were brought together through the gastronomical interests, and when the craft beer came to our radar, we all had like entrepreneurial spirit. So that was one of the things that we got really fascinated. But then we also thought, like from very beginning, that okay, this we could try a business out of, and we did not know much about brewing, and we wrote to back then the original Brewdog times when the brewery was at Fraserburgh, and I had a chance to work there as a trainee, and that's where I met Chris, and we hit it off pretty well, and he came to visit us a few months later, and the friendship became a business partnership, and Chris has been in Estonia now 8 years, but I'll let him talk about that now.
So yeah, not quite long enough to pick up the accent, as you correctly guessed. But yeah, no, Estonia was great because it was a country that was really on the cusp of something. You know, when I first came over to visit before I moved, then there was such an interest in like people doing handcrafted things and like really, really in-depth cooking. There was so much going on that you could see like why wasn't beer being done in a craft way? It was just a matter of time. There was absolutely no stopping it when it came about. And yeah, I mean, nowadays we get to the point where I think many of us actually know the Estonian craft beer scene outside of the country. Its punch is definitely above its weight in terms of breweries and what's available on the market, especially in the barrel-aged and dark beer game, which is only fitting for the heritage of the country.
Yeah, well, feels like we're already desperate to try and get to the dark stuff and talk about that. But so, I mean, everybody's started to dive into the Pilky, and we've had some great comments. Lots of people really enjoying it. It's got a much more sweet citrus aroma than I'd have expected from a European hopped Pilsner. Is that from hop selection, or is it from something in the recipe where you've managed to tease that out?
Yeah, so that's actually a combo of two things, really. First up, it's you're right about the hop selection. This is a blend of Sapphire, of Spalt, and Tettnang. And on the dry hop side, it pretty heavily favors the Sapphire. And the Sapphire that we get is very, very, very big on the lemon. Like we kind of get a little hints of like lemon cheesecake when we use it in massive quantities, which we don't use here, but we still get hints of that lemoniness. It's a really great hop for this. It's despite being like a sort of fairly classical German hop, if you use it in the boil and the dry hop, it's insane. So much oil in there. But we also have a really, really clean Pilsner malt that we get pretty locally. We get most of our malt from Finland, just across the pond. There's a great malting company there that like they grow in Sweden, they grow in Finland, they grow some just down south. Unfortunately, not anything local to us. And the Pilsner malt that we get there for this is like it's just super clean, super crisp, but it adds that little hint of citrus in there when you sort of mash it sort of to the schedule that we do, the more Germanic sort of step mashing system. You really bring out those characters. And yeast is fairly well controlled. We're not looking for a very sulfuric sort of touch from this yeast. We want to go pretty clean. We want to just like lager it as long as we can, but not pick up the sort of that like big nose of sulfur. We want to let the hops shine through.
It's really interesting how we often talk about European hops as having a certain profile, and also UK hops as well having a certain profile. And what we forget is that part of that profile is the way that they were used as well. So, putting a European hop, like you say, in the boil is going to give you maybe grass and touches of lemon, but it's going to be quite a savoury aroma. Whereas, if you dry hop with it, you're going to get entirely different characteristics. And we don't experiment enough with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Always interesting what's going on there. And, I mean, we haven't done this experiment ourselves, but like even the amount of the terroir is not just like where it's grown, but like how it's grown. I'm talking with hop growers over in who are like they're doing trials of things like Citra and Cascade over in Spain for the organic market, and they're saying just how like closely it actually resembles the sort of Yakima grown ones. Rather than the organic ones grown in Yakima, because they don't need to use any fertilizers, just like they would on the sort of the one over there. It is really, really interesting. Just the world of hops and what affects it all, what you can pull out of them. It's insane.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's got as much variation as like a wine grape might, but then we've got more ingredients that have to go in as well. So it lots of terroirs sort of bumping up against each other and creating something new. Tell me about lager in Estonia. What was around? Obviously, it was very macro beer, but are there lots of sort of Estonian lager brands, or were you drinking imported stuff?
I mean, the local craft scene is very up to date when we talk about the craft lager scene. You know, everybody we're not the only one bringing out these kinds of beers, and especially this year is definitely going to offer a lot of new offerings from our side as well. So we will have a new lager beer coming, but you know, this is probably another topic. But soon we'll have some news to share. But otherwise, yeah, the general market, you know, is despite all the dark beer thing, you know, it's a big you know, lager country. You know, when we think of the overall percentage, you know, then it's definitely dominated by that. And there's a lot of great Czech and German brands here, and the local big beer is doing decent ones. And so yeah, it's overall it's lager country.
That's actually true. One thing that I noticed when I first moved over here is, yeah, sure, you get a lot of the local ones, but you could find Pilsner. You can find Pilsner Urquell on tap in a surprising amount of places. Like, it was surprisingly well available. I always thought back then.
But now it's the offering is you know, just so many great local beer that it's definitely shifting. That it's making harder and harder for the imported beers. That, you know, I would definitely say that, you know, there's a thing like Estonian beer coming. You know, so you know, we're going to invite you guys later with a little tour to our brewery. But yeah, it's definitely country worth to visit. You know, just even from the simple beers, you would be surprised. And then again, let's not even go to the dark ones.
Well, on that note, should we watch the first video in which you talk a bit about Pilky and just show the first bit of your brewery?
Oh yeah, I think it's time.
Sounds great.
Alrighty, let's give that a go.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Craft Beer Channel, live tasting with us, Põhjala. We're here by our brewery by the sunny seaside of Tallinn, just over there, you see? Why the red lights? I can see it. You can probably see it. And next to the seaside is us and our fabulous brewery that we're going to take you inside. We're going to taste some beers, we're going to show you what makes us us, and we're going to have a really good time together. So, welcome to Põhjala. Let's go in, let's have a look around. Ow! Oh, the sniff, anyway. So right in the front door is our shop. Because there's a bit of music playing, for licensing issues, let's go look the rest of the place. Ooh, let's get going. So up here is our beautiful tap room. We've got 24 taps of craft beer goodness. We've got barbecue smokers in the back for our awesome food. And we've got a beautiful balcony out front. And then follow me in to something that maybe few other breweries have got. So in here is the sauna. Sauna is a pretty big thing over here. You'll just chill with your friends in a hot, steamy room with some hot, steamy rocks. So you'd normally be around about 70 to 90 degrees, depending on your preference. And you just create a little bit of steam. Throw some... oh, forgot to turn it on. Sorry. What better beer to drink in a sauna than Pilsner? This is Pilky. We're going to go through it. We love it. It's our favorite beer for drinking with the sauna with your friends. Something to just do all night. Pro tip, never pour beer onto these rocks. I know it's tempting. Don't do it. Not even once. Stay away, kids.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
So, questions about the sauna. How do you keep the beer cold in a sauna?
Drink it. Well, you just have to drink. Exactly. Nail on the head.
Drink real fast.
No, but actually, I guess part of the typical sauna culture, it's not even so much about the warm room in there, but it's about the room with the couch, just sitting out there for hours, just talking and drinking with your friends.
It's equally important time that when you come out of we rarely drink actually in the hot room. So it's something you do that when you come out and you have rinsed yourself with the cold water, and when you happen to do it in the countryside, then you go into the snow, or you know, when you're lucky one, then you have like an ice hole in the lake or the sea right next to it. This is the best thing, you know, and then you'll have a beer. when you're finished with the sauna procedures. You know, sometimes I don't even touch the beer while at the sauna because it's still a health procedure. You know, heart rate goes up and down, but the more you enjoy it later, you know, sitting there with a little snack, and this is, you know, the equal time you sit after the sauna, you know, and as quality time as in the hot room.
So sorry, Brad, you've got a question, I can see.
Well, I just think that's one of the coolest breweries I've ever seen in my life. Like, I know sauna's huge in Estonian culture, but it's kind of mind blowing to see it in a brewery for a start, and also such a beautifully designed brewery. Like, you're obviously big fans of, you know, it just looks like amazing. Like, the quality and finish you've got everywhere is beautiful.
Thank you. So every Monday our tap room is closed, and this is what we call a brewer's night, sauna night, you know. And this is where, you know, we can just come out to the tap room with the towels around us, and, you know, just pour ourselves a little beer and go back to sauna. You know, you were asking about the cold beer. Our sauna is 8 meters from cold taps. So there you go. That's problem solved.
So have you got people like queuing for beer in a towel?
No. That's only happening on Monday nights when the tap room is closed and it's exclusively brewer sauna or like employee sauna. So that, and we have actually quite international crew, and, you know, we have guys from Australia and, you know, UK, you know, and we have all, you know, they all have started to like the sauna culture, and they're all here on Mondays. You know, some guys come in even if they're not having assigned to work that day. You know, they come because they know that every Monday night is sauna night.
I saw a program about Estonia on late night TV, and there was actually a mobile sauna that was in the back of a van that was taking people around.
That was actually parked not just like 300 meters from us. It had its location one time, so we are right next to the sea. So it was parked right next to the sea, so you could jump from the sauna to the sea.
Amazing.
There are all sorts of saunas. You have saunas built into fire trucks and stuff like that you can rent. You know, saunas like a floating saunas on the lakes. You know, just like a sauna with a little terrace around it. That's it. Yeah. All varieties.
Amazing.
We're just a little piece of the puzzle. And the thing is that actually you can rent that sauna. It's not just for the employees or for ourselves. It's we can actually rent with a little group of friends. I think it's 6 to 8 people is convenient.
And then you can just bring in a load of beer from downstairs from the shop, nice and cold, and just crack a couple open as if you were at home.
Amazing.
And then
do you get drunk if you're in the sauna? Does it make you drunker? I can't even really think about it. You probably have to drink faster.
No, then we have a little water tap in the sauna as well. So it's very important that you hydrate going to sauna. So it's because you sweat a lot, you know, and then this is actually good hydration, you know, and then, you know, after you have been also maybe had few beers too many day before, you know, that's a good sweat out.
Yeah, and then eat some barbecue food. Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Johnny, where are we going?
When are we going? Soon as lockdown's over, mate. I'm looking up flights right now. That's why I'm not asking questions.
3-hour flight or something.
Just rent yourself a private seaplane and just land right in the harbour.
Yeah, Craft Beer Channel's got money for that. If people could do more super chats and join our Patreon, we'll be there in a heartbeat. We've got 2 questions that I think we need to address. The first one has already been asked a couple of times, but people are wondering how to pronounce the name of your brewery.
Okay, maybe I'll try that one as a native Estonian. Põhjala. Põhjala.
Põhjala.
Very good. There we go. That first try. That's superb, guys. Põhjala.
Yeah,
so it's pronounced like it's kind of unique letter, but yeah, I think everybody is capable actually saying it. So we got it. I hope.
Okay, somebody else looking up flights. If we get more people, we can charter a flight.
There you go. There you go. Maybe you can rent a plane from the Brewdog. Maybe they're not using it that much right now. So
maybe.
Fund the whole thing with another live
do
episode.
they still have the plane or? Maybe there's some Brewdog owners. There should be some Brewdog shareholders watching. So let us know what's happening. So
there you go.
Come pay us a visit.
We'll chip in. There you go. Rich Simpson's added to our Seaplane Fund. Thank you very much. Oh, it could be a thing. Oh, good Lord. Oh, it's happening. It's happening.
All right.
Okay, maybe we should look up how much a plane is before we start making promises. The other question... Oh, I've just accidentally... Well, I'm glad I flashed that up. Everybody's laughing out loud. The other question was... So somebody's asked where your brewery is, which we covered slightly in the video, but I'd love to know more about your location and about Tallinn. Are you like literally within the city on the coast?
Yeah, so we're in a place called Port Noblesner. It's one of the old seaports inside the city. Originally built by Alfred Noble's brother, I think it was, or cousin, and a Russian businessman, Noble and Noblesner, put it all together, and they actually built submarines around about here.
Yeah, this whole part of the town, it's called Port Noblesner. Like Chris said, it was erected in 3 years prior to the First World War, and it was the most modern shipyard back then in Tsar Russia, and it was to prepare for the First World War, and they managed to build 13 submarines here.
Wow.
That actually were in the battle. And later it has had many uses, but now in the Soviet times it was also part of the shipyard, and for 20 years it was just standing empty until we are tenants here. So the owner of the shipyard, they renovated it nicely for us according to our plan. So we have long-term plan here. Mm-hmm. So it's beautiful historical buildings erected in 1912. It started the build out, and they started to build the ships already 2 years later. So back then things happened fast.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, in terms of like geographic location, then we're around about 15-minute walk from the middle of the old town, well, from the old town entrance, which is slap bang in the middle of the city of Tallinn.
So yeah, very convenient walk, a nice walk by the seaside. You can walk by the sea to us, and we are located like just 200 meters from the yacht harbor now, which is a lot of beautiful boats and beautiful people around the boats there. So there are a lot of bars around us, other bars too. So it becomes very lively, our neighborhood in the summer. So and our terrace and the tap room is part of it. So and there's a beautiful park next to us. It's like, yeah, you just have to come and see, guys. It's a beautiful neck of the woods. So it's not just a beautiful building, but the surroundings is also great.
Yeah, and I mean that was really important to us as well, because when we kind of built this place up, then we had another brewery already. This is our second brewery that we built, and that was positioned right on the like opposite a woodland, which was beautiful surroundings. So it's pretty tough to beat that, you know. And of course, there's always the option just throw up a new building, big box outside the city somewhere, or just on the outskirts of the city. But you know, that's nowhere near as nice, and we put a big value on sort of niceness in that sense.
It was a very lucky timing for us that it became to the same time that we were looking for a new home. And these guys who were developing this kind of like, you know, they were taking in the large, you know, plan, you know, they were looking for key tenants, and they were looking for some, you know, interesting, you know, addition. And we, you know, we're not making too much noise or smell, so we fit in nicely, you know, because there are a lot of residential areas around us too, you know. We are the only production thing here in this.
Right, really? So you've got a bit of a responsibility to be a quiet and good-smelling business.
Yeah, I mean, there are also nightclub right next to us. I mean, if anybody has neighborhood problems, that's them.
We've got a super chat that's just come in. Like we'll get to it later in the show as well. But he's asking about wax caps. Is there a purpose to the wax cap?
Yes, our barrel age program is called Cellar Series, and this is to call out the heritage, because there's a lot of land cellars here in Estonia, and this is, where we like to keep our own beers. For a few months, few years, they get better. And it would be a shame that when the cap gets rusty and you lose the beer. So it's attractive, but it also has a practical value, because really we call out, we just recommend to age those beers. Let the man talk. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, exactly. The land cellars, like the root cellars, we might think of them, are pretty popular. So it is great not to worry about like maybe those more humid conditions and those caps. They also serve like, let's not beat around the bush as well. They look beautiful, but they also serve another function where I personally have appreciated it, because I know that if I'm going to my cellar, my basement, and I've got some friends over, then I'm kind of like thinking, I'm not going to bring that one up just yet. Maybe we want to save that for like a special occasion, or maybe you bring one up and people are like, okay, now we're moving on to something else, and they pay a bit more. Like, it's kind of, gifting culture is a big thing in many sort of Asian countries, and I think we have a little bit of that as well here. It's like, especially right now, what I'm talking about is the occasions to gather like amongst ourselves. We want to enjoy them a lot. So, this is a great way of like really being festive.
Yeah, like a sense.
And we will get to how to open them properly later on as well, because there's one weird trick that
This is YouTube, so we do love just one weird trick, never two. Right, I don't know about you guys, but I've run out of Pilky, so perhaps it's time for a bit of I believe in Evergreen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shall we watch the video that will give the big reveal for this, and then we'll dig into the beer?
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Alrighty.
What's the next place we're going? We are going down into the brewery itself. So we're going to go check out our hops. We're going to go check out some other fun stuff we use, and just see the beers in their natural environment. It's kind of like a safari, except with beer and not animals, and indoors, and hopefully safer. So inside here is the brewery itself. We've got a science room, we've got a steam room, we've got a malt room, and we've got a room, This over here is our brew house, state-of-the-art stuff from Germany. They know a thing or two about making beer.
One ender. Two ender. I like it. I like this one.
So the next beer that we're going to be tasting is a pretty special one. This is called We Believe in Evergreen. And this is a collaboration we did with our good friends from Sweden at Sigtuna Brewery. This is a hazy double IPA, and this one is brewed with freshly foraged spruce tips from Estonia and from Sweden. Speaking of spruce tips, so these things we can only harvest them in a brief 2-week window in May. You pick them just at the right time. You get them like this, and they have this incredible citrusy, vitamin-y packed experience. You get a bit of resin, but you just get this bright, sweet, juicy flavor. It's almost better than hops, and it just grows on trees. It's crazy. We do a lot of forest ingredient stuff. We've worked with many different things: pine needles, birch bark, and these spruce tips. So yeah, this is a beer where hopefully you can taste some of that, as well as the phenomenal amount of dry hopping that went on into it.
There we go. So spruce tips, forage spruce tips.
Yeah.
Very exciting to try this.
This is actually, you might notice on the bottle, there's a little Forest Series logo on it, and those are ones that. I think I know about it too. Yeah. These are. That's basically just like Cellar Series is our barrel aged series. Then Forest Series is the ones where we go to the forest and we pick stuff out from there. And in this particular case, and a few others, then it's spruce tips, which is one of our favorites, to be honest. So yeah. I said our last brewery was right next to a forest. That was no joke. A lot of the ingredients came from right over the road. Now we have to go a little bit further out for them, but you can't have everything. It's a good trade. So yeah, we believe in Evergreen. This is a hazy double IPA in that sort of style that we've been going for a bit, and it's brewed with our friends over at Sigtuna in Sweden. So we kind of settled on something where we really wanted something that was unique to sort of our forests, something that was shared between them, and spruce tips was the answer for that.
Don't forget that we got Swedish spruce tips in, so we used spruce tips from both sides of the coast, so there's Swedish and Estonian mixed.
Exactly. This was a beer where we really wanted it to be as collaborative as possible because that was one way that we could do it. We could link up with those ingredients. And spruce tips are something that we've explored a couple of times in IPAs because you get this juicy, citrusy kick from them. You get that little bit of resin, but you get if you pick them at the right time, as I briefly mentioned, maybe you can share some stories about gathering them.
They're like lemony, and they have been used in ancient medicine or home usage for a long time. My grandma used to make iced tea out of it, because it's just like a certain time in May. And then they pop like asparagus, off the tree. And when you go forage it, you don't pick the one tree fully, you just take a little bit, from one branch and another, and then it's totally fine for the tree. And there's a lot of foragers now that we can buy that stuff from, and it's all from the good clean forests and good managed forests. So it's not that we go anymore ourselves. It was the first tests we did, but most of the forest is state-owned or private-owned, so you have to have some sort of agreement to pick it, and it's certain time that they taste the best. Mm-hmm. So they're not really I wouldn't say the resiny. My first taste would be lemony. It's really like a bright stuff. Really nice.
For sure, you maybe saw when we were in the video there.
Yeah, we was just munching on them because we didn't throw it away. What was left on the table, it's just eating all. Because it's super full of vitamin C. Because this is one thing that I have to say is Estonia is very rich of our pharmacy is the forest, and we have kept the knowledge over the generations, and also the ironic, but the Soviet times definitely helped along with that. So all the practical tips and tricks were kept along the so this thing it's like I said I have memories from childhood drinking iced tea of that stuff Right now, it's time that we're taking a birch sap. So it's again just 2 weeks in the time. You birch a small hole into the birch tree, and you can collect birch sap out of it. And we actually have in our history brewed a beer with birch sap as well. So we had 600 liters. I think 1/3 of the liquid was birch sap that was brought to us from Finland actually. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically we mashed in with birch sap instead of water.
Yeah, and that's where we used also the birch bark in the beer. It was fantastic, dark beer.
And birch has not only been used in there because we also one pretty cool local product is it's like that. It's like how maple syrup is this maple sap, super condensed. They do over here the same thing with this birch sap, and it's incredibly expensive because you need to use so much of it. And there's only so much birch sap you can harvest, sort of environmentally. But so we managed to get a hold of some, and Jessica King were over at one point, so we brewed with them, and we used loads and loads of as much as we could get our hands on of this caramelized birch syrup, and it was just phenomenal. It was so minerally. It was just full of these rich molasses sort of flavors. Incredible thing. It worked so well with.
I don't know if you guys see. There's a photo of that how I collect it, and so it's I built the tree. So there's a container, and I attach the bottle, and it's just ticking. It's not dripping. It's just tick, 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 and in 24 hours I get about 3-4 liters out of one tree, and it's completely healthy. Next year the tree grows itself back onto it. So you don't have to even put anything into it. It just have to have a tree big enough. So just a small going into the forest.
Straw.
And that was done in last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Great stuff.
So
Exactly, birch straw. It's fascinating stuff. If you can find a local birch tree yourself, then
It has to be in very clean environment because it can't be near the roads or anything. It could be how to say polluted. So that's why that's collected in the deep forest.
and you can actually, like, in some of the forest walks you can go on, you can see like the sort of the markings on the trees from like really old times, from where someone must have like put some.
That's they collect the wax from not the spruce, but that's what's that word? Pine, pine wax.
Yeah.
So
you're right,
it's like
right.
cut like. Anyway, that's
Too many trees. Sorry.
a lot of tree stories. When you guys come, we have a lot of tree stories.
Well, yeah. Welcome to the Tree Channel. Our Tree Channel. Sorry, the Evergreen's getting to me. So everybody's loving it in the comments. We've got people talking about like a hint of dankness as well, maybe, which might be that kind of wildness, that really juicy, also green note from the spruce tips. And then like lots of people saying it's juicy. So many Spruce puns: Spruce Springsteen, Spruce Wayne, Spruce Almighty,
Spruce Forsyth could be a good beer. That was my favourite.
Nice to be
Spruce
here.
Willis.
Yep.
Where at what point in the brew does the spruce go in? Is it a dry hop or is it boiled?
So these particular ones, then we basically add at the same time as we would a dry hop, except we don't just chuck them in whole. What we'll do is we'll take what you can see out of what you can see in the video, the tips, and we'll actually boil up and make a tea from them, and then that tea will be added to the beer, because you extract so much more of it out there than just like soaking them in the beer. You just don't get the same thing. Whereas the boiling really brings out that sort of juicy vitamin-y character. You get the most out of them that way. And when you taste them after that, then there's nothing left of them. You're just chewing on. You're just
Empty.
Yeah, exactly. They're empty. They're gone.
Squeeze like a lemon.
And that's also pretty good for us because we can add we can try it out in like small doses and see, yep, okay, this is turning into a little too heavy on that, or it needs more. Fetch out another couple bags from there. And yeah, the about the dankness actually, that's coming not just from the spruce tips, but also some of the hops in there. This one is one of the first times that we're using a little hint of Sabro just in the whirlpool, and some of the mosaic that we get is pretty dank, and we're using some of that in the dry hop. And we picked those because we felt that they would kind of help support the sprucey character. Everything about those hops was chosen to kind of like so that it would all blend into one. You can get a load of the spruce, but then the hops don't distract; they rather like elevate it.
Yeah, I guess it's a subtle balance to get because you don't want to add stuff that's adding the same as the spruce, but equally you don't want to add anything that's going to scream louder than it, which might be a risk with Sabro.
Oh, that's the thing. We were pretty worried actually when we were coming up with the recipe. We were pretty worried that like we've got two possibilities. It's either going to become an IPA that like maybe someone says maybe there's some spruce in there, or it's going to be a spruce beer where there's some hops in it. And it was a very fine line to tread, and I think we managed to hit it right where we wanted, but hopefully you guys agree.
Yeah, I think it's beautifully balanced, that aroma. Like there is a lovely dankness and a freshness, and definitely lemon, like a sharp lemon when you first sniff, which also really helps with the sweetness that these really hazy beers have, because there's a bit of sharpness to it as well, which makes it feel like a little bit slightly like fermented fruit, slightly rotten fruit in a really nice way. That I really love about it. I think it's great.
The Sabro is quite subtle for me, but I feel like when Sabro is used in small amounts, that sometimes it just gives a sort of different body to the beer somehow. Like there's a sort of slight creaminess.
Yeah, almost like sort of cream caramelly in a way. We definitely feel that, and we've only used it. We've only used it 3 times so far, and we've never used it very much because like. It's one of those where I'm really, really worried that you can overdo it massively. But if we do 100% Sabro beer in the future, then we'll see for ourselves a bit better.
What about sort of IPA culture in Estonia? Is it as as popular as it is in sort of the classic craft brewing markets of like the UK and America, or do you have a bit more diversity?
No, it's a geeky market. It's a very geeky market. It's in that sense, it's placed like no other, but I wouldn't say that we would be releasing as many IPAs in a row that in some breweries closer to the hop growing areas, so to say. But I think maybe Chris is better man to give an overview of IPA market here.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely like in the other areas, then IPA is absolutely king. It's what people associate still with craft beer culture, even when we have the sort of the big dark stuff is well known here. But when people think of a craft beer that they want to drink, it's still very much IPA. And I think like one thing that's really influencing that is we've been pretty slow actually to pick up on the hazy IPA game over here compared to some other countries perhaps.
True.
We're all only just leaning into it like over the last couple of years, and we're also kind of generally going a little bit bigger on the IPAs than perhaps other countries, because the pub culture is the bar culture is very different to sort of pub culture in the UK, and many times then people are going to want to have they're going to want to have one. They're going to want to try one bottle, and then they're going to move on to another, and then another, and then another. They're never going to have the same beer twice, perhaps. So they want to sort of have these big flavors all the time. So we maybe have a few less sessionable IPAs on the market. I would say that our average IPA experience is more around about 6% or so, 6-7%. In that sense, it mirrors more the American ones on the slightly higher end of the spectrum. I don't know if I'm in any way answering anyone's question with this meandering, but we're kind of like everyone's pretty focused on IPAs, even if we're kind of
we are. Once our tap room was open, we are always doing our beer releases on Thursdays. Once it's as a kind of a natural chance of a little bit of more party mode, and you gotta say it's the Cellar Series and IPAs that gather the most people. So it's like the IPA and Cellar Series interest wise, I would say are both very very sought after and followed. We have our Moonraker series that is not here on the table, but perhaps or hopefully there's not everything is sold out, but that will come out again in August. So there is our own double IPA, the double DDH series, that we tried to get hands on the new and experimental hops and play around. So we definitely brew 4 or 5 big IPAs a year.
Do you see sort of I guess a responsibility for breweries to try to push different styles and experiment and encourage drinkers to try new things? I guess from my point of view in the UK, it would have been nice. Obviously, brewers have to brew what's going to sell and what's going to get them attention because they're a business. But I always find it interesting, wondering whether brewers could do more to encourage diversity.
Well, I would say that for us, then we've kind of, every single craft brewery will give you the spiel of we only brew what we want to drink. But in many cases, what we have tried to do is we're trying to take something that we're passionate about and find a way to make it relevant for everyone. And the Forest series is a great example of that, in my opinion, because we're passionate about these ingredients and we view ourselves to an extent as ambassadors of Estonia through beer culture. This and the Forest series are ways for you to kind of experience and travel within the country without having to visit the country, so to say. So we kind of have very often done some more esoteric styles, let's say, rye ales used to feature very prominently. Rye wines we've done, Baltic porters we've kind of tried to bring back. And we even did a barrel-aged Groot at one point with sort of wild herbs from the bogs of Estonia. Because we kind of feel yes, okay, commercially they may not be the most sort of big things, but they're very interesting. And the only way that people can kind of keep talking about them in the future is by pushing them. And you just have to find the right thing that resonates with people, you know, like with the groups. It's a fascinating old style of, well, I'm not sure you can call it beer in that sense legally, but you know, it's a fascinating example of a beverage that just isn't really being made many places. So if you're going to do it, well, what could we do to put our own spin on it? Not just saying we're going to do this one style, and if no one buys it, no one buys it. But like, you know, we're trying to sort of push something that maybe hasn't been done for a while. And we've done that a couple of times with these styles.
Glen Noble.
Yeah, exactly. Glen Noble. It's that was a collab we did with our friends at Tempest, and that was taking a recipe from Younger's Scottish brewing archives from like 1700s or so. It was a Scottish 160 shilling ale, and we brewed it pretty much in the style that was like as close as we could to the recipe. It was a bit of a surprise actually in how many hops they use, but we tried to brew as close as we could to how it was done, even down to the attenuation. But then we put our own little spin on it. You know, we used some wildflower honey from Estonia. We aged it in Scotch whiskey barrels, which probably wasn't an option back then. But we kind of dug into this thing that like once was brewed, but wasn't and isn't anymore. And you know,
Dug in with Dougie. That's
Yeah.
the Tempest.
so you know, together it was great because we both really wanted to highlight, like in this case, a Scottish brewing tradition, but in other cases we've done Estonian brewing traditions. We feel it's kind of like it's important to remind people that these styles exist.
And if that's not clear yet, Chris is a Scotchman. It doesn't sound very much in his accent. I have to reveal, that's a funny side, by the way. He's grown up in Qatar, so he was very international man before he moved to Estonia. So just a little detail how he speaks so well international English, not so sturdy Scottish accent. Love Scotland. I feel nothing against, but just a little detail about the man.
We had a question just about. Oh God, it isn't the right question. Sorry. Yeah, here we go. Do you use the same volume of spruce as you would hops, more or less? So, like in the beer we're drinking, are there lots of spruce in that, or what?
You know, there's probably a lot less than you might think, because let's say you're going to be using something like 20-something grams a liter of hops. That's what's gone into here roughly. But in terms of spruce tips, then around about 2 grams per liter has gone into here, and you can get quite a lot of it. The spruce tips are very, very potent. You know, for a 100 hectoliter tank that we have as our main tanks, then we're using about 5 to 6 kilos normally, depending on the beer. It's a very, very small amount. It's a very potent ingredient when you pick it at the right time. But picking it at the right time is very important, because
You see later in our video, you know, we have quite a spacious brewery, and you know, once we brew, when we boil those spruce tips here, it's just like a few kilos, but it will be several hundreds of liters of tea coming out of it, and the whole brewery is just smelling amazingly. I mean, exactly this lemony, resiny, like juicy stuff. So it's all around in the air. So it's very potent.
yeah. There's no mistaking what's going on that day when you walk in and smell that. So it's pretty insane stuff. And a lot of the forest ingredients are like that as well, actually. There's some like this birch bark that Peter mentioned that we used. That was something crazy for about 3,000 liters. Then we used maybe half a kilo. And you're not tasting that beer today, unfortunately, but that was incredible just how much you could taste it.
It gave very nice woody notes that you could feel through that dark beer.
And another one using pine needles. I can't remember the exact quantities, but again, it's a very small amount compared to what you would think of when you're talking like the amount of dry hops in a beer. So yeah.
And pine needles on opposite, you have to collect at the coldest time possible, because that's when they have preserved the most of the vitamins and minerals. So that's what we picked in the January when we did the brown ale with pine needles and vanilla, Kalana.
So that's when they're not growing; they're just sort of in reserve.
Exactly. And what we did with the pine needles is that we went to the freshly. I contacted the local forest manager and asked where was the latest, the freshest, when they have cut down the trees. So we went there, but there was like just last day they had forest, taken out the trees out to the sawmill. So we got already from the dead trees, so to say. So very sustainable was that beer.
Awesome.
We've got a question from Tez Boys who says that he's getting an oily feel. Is that possibly from the spruce? I mean, oil, you get that texture quite a bit from haziness, but it does feel a bit more accentuated.
The spruce definitely adds a little oiliness. That's when we talk about the spruce resin, that is a little bit like oily resin. Lemony, oily stuff.
Yeah, but absolutely, that plays into it. The beer itself, even without that, would definitely have a fair bit of oiliness, but down to all the hops that are in there. But the spruce just really turns it up a notch, and you can feel that in many others. Actually, there's another interesting component about the spruce tips, and that's a story from the very first beer we ever used them in, which is it was called back then Pesicon, the black IPA. And that was what we called a Black Forest IPA, not inspired by the dessert, but, a Black Forest IPA. So a black IPA with a load of spruce tips and a load of forest blueberries and all the hops. And it was great because when it was fresh, the hops are front and center. And then when it starts aging, then maybe the blueberries come out a bit more or the spruce comes out a bit more, because these things, like the spruce, it doesn't really oxidize and deteriorate with age, So when all of the hops started fading, then you still have this like pretty strong, potent vitamin C, like lemony citrus character. It's really, really interesting how they work for that. So
it could be a good thing to use in a barley wine or something.
That's a good idea, actually.
And for this beer as well, as it's hoppy, even we know the hops will start to fade away at some point. Definitely, this beer has a little bit like a longer best before enjoyment date because of the spruce kind of holding it up still.
I've got to say, it's incredible to have, seasonality is almost kind of gone from beer. We used to be slaves to the idea, before refrigeration, before we started isolating yeasts, we were totally reliant on foraging ingredients instead of hops, on the temperatures of the seasons as we went through. And it's really great to drink some beers where seasonality does play a part, picking the spruce at the right time, picking the pine needles at the right time. But it's an extra element to that terroir that we talked about earlier, having the timing even matter, and how it can influence when you drink the beers as well. In many years' time, this might still be a delicious beer, which is not something I'd ever say for a hazy IPA ever. Super interesting.
We had a very important question. What's the standard size? What's the standard pour size in Estonia, guys?
It used to be 0.5 liters all around. Most of the macro beer was sold in 0.5, but in our own tap room we have 0.4 and 0.25, and this has kind of become kind of norm around the craft beer bars. So I would say 0.4.
I want to go to. There's a festival in Estonia called Kilkim Zebu. I don't know how you pronounce it. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's sort of like heavy metal festival that's on a lake. And it looks amazing. Like people dress up like Vikings and.
Try to pronounce it again.
I think it's Kilkim Zebu or Zabu.
No.
Our heavy metal aficionado is left for the day, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, we're more like indie guys,
Oh, me too. I mean, I like all kinds of music, but it just looks amazing. There's like, because the Viking is it right? There's like a sort of Viking thing that in Estonia.
I mean, it could be some small festival I haven't heard. I hope I am not insulting anybody, organizers, but I'm not familiar. But if you would put it on the screen, maybe I would say, yeah, of course, that one.
Okay. There's a documentary on BBC about it actually that I watched, but maybe I'll share that later.
Okay, interesting.
All right, shall we go for beer number 3?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's. Should we do the video and then we'll dig in?
What do you think? Why not? You think it'd work good? So we're gonna go up onto the brew deck for a sec. Now this whole thing is custom designed to be semi-automatic because this is still craft beer. You can do it as automatic as you want, but you always want to fiddle around with some things. And then step on through to my office. Pretty good view from here about everything that's going on. So surrounded by all this fabulous brewing equipment, what better to do than talk about Vikerkaar? Vikerkaar means a rainbow in Estonian, and this is an Imperial Gose we brewed with loads of rhubarb and fresh rosemary. Kind of reminds you of a trip down Grandma's garden, and we'll be drinking that together. Cheers.
The big question.
Vikerkaar? No, it's just water. It's what became Vikerkaar, because beer is mostly water.
Johnny has used this as an opportunity to go for a lube mode, which is exactly what I did as well. So,
I thought I'd be back in time.
we both got pulled short, mate.
Oh no, that was going to be so pro. I was just thinking, I was in the loo going, this is great, having these little breaks. We show the videos, we go to the loo, I'm back in time. Oh no.
It is a good format, definitely. It gives a little bit of an opportunity, doesn't it?
Right, where are we? Here we go.
Right by the rainbow.
It's an absolutely beautiful bottle. I love it. Is that the background we've got for today's show?
It is, yeah.
It is. There we go.
It is. Well, outside, and yes, it is.
Yeah, that's the artwork for the flyer. Yes, correct.
Awesome.
But yeah, so Vikerkaar means rainbow in Estonian.
So all our Imperial Goses are named after like weather themes: storm, hail, rainbow, something else.
Torm, tuul,
wind.
rahe.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit like a weather map, like playing around with different weather fronts. Right.
Exactly.
Terviseks. We talked about Põhjala. So cheers in Estonian is terviseks. And that means for terviseks, for your good health.
36.
Terviseks.
Terviseks.
Yeah. You say it out loud. Sex. Yes, there's sex in the end. Terviseks.
Turvy sex.
Terviseks.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. For good health. Yeah.
For good health.
Rosemary.
So
Well, I've got massive
Nice
body
little-
on it. Good lord.
nice little palate cleanser, hey? This is when we were talking about the forest series just before then, this is kind of what I unofficially like to call the garden series. There's a few things where we're using like berries and herbs that are like, they're not foresty, but they're still something. So yeah, not forest, something in between. And rhubarb and rosemary, what more can you get than
They both grow wild, they are kind of forest plants, you just put them out, they stay, the winter doesn't take them out even. Yeah.
So this is a pretty interesting one. We used a fairly insane amount of rhubarb in this one. It was rhubarb in sort of juice form already. We didn't pick it straight from the ground and squeeze it and cold press it, unfortunately. But we wanted to capture the essence of rhubarb and sort of like a baked rhubarb cake almost taste with this acidity that an Imperial Gose should have. And you sure should get some of that sourness. You sure should get some of that salinity as well. It's got a lot of minerality. And the funny thing is that there's almost no salt actually in this Imperial Gose. This is all coming from the minerality of the rhubarb itself, it was kind of mind blowing for us when we tried it. We had to go and double check how much salt we actually added. Like, did someone accidentally double the quantity or triple it? But no, it's all from the rhubarb.
It's rhubarb's such an interesting ingredient because it's always in very sweet stuff, but it's actually a very a little bit earthy, incredibly sour, kind of green, but also kind of sweet fruit vegetable thing. I mean, I couldn't. If you try to explain to somebody that's never seen or tasted a rhubarb what it tastes like and what it looks like and what it is, I don't really know where you
start. Rhubarb, because when you bite into the fresh rhubarb, stick, it has a very similar, kind of mouthfeel, It attacks you with the sourness, and then mouth becomes a little dry. But all in all, there's a lot of play going on in your mouth,
It doesn't want to let go when it's in as well.
It sticks, yeah. In terms of the sourness, how have you achieved that?
So this is something we don't do wild fermentation in here. We kind of don't want to risk that affecting the other beers. But what we have done is we have a special sour tank. You can almost see it. It's right over there.
One of the ones in the back.
Yes, exactly. Right there. So we'll brew the beer and we'll pump it over to there, and we'll add a sort of a house bacteria culture that we've got, and over some time, then it'll acidify and it'll add all those hints of funkiness that we want. We picked this culture, like we kind of grew this culture up from a couple different strains of lactobacillus to get the sort of flavor profile that we wanted, the body we wanted, the tanginess we wanted, and it's a beast of a culture now. And then we just pump it back in and reboil it. In this case, obviously, the rhubarb has given a lot of acidity as well. So this is something that we always try and take into account when we're doing it, is like, what acidity do we actually want to sour to in that tank? Because the fruit is going to add naturally quite a lot of it. With something like a raspberry, it'll do almost nothing, like overall, no matter how much you're using. But with something like the rhubarb, you use this in a great quantity, and it's insane how much it does. Same with currants.
But it's really nice to have that level of sourness with a really, like, almost gloopy, like ropey pediococcus vibe. It's that gloopy and that thick, and it's joyous to have it with that acidity and that rich fruitiness and that herbalness. It's a fucking riot in your mouth when it's going.
That's true. Part of the fun from there actually is like, the rhubarb actually contains a lot of what we found before this is it contains a load of unfermentable sugars and sort of complex stuff going on in there. So like, that's also a lot where this body is coming from. It's got this, like, it's there's no lactose obviously in there, but it's just got a whack of unfermentables that kind of add to this, like, layering in the mouth, like gloopy, like you say, is a great way to describe it. It's a very fun one. And the Imperial Goses are ones that we do a couple of times a year because they're just really interesting ways to, like, push these certain ingredients. In the past, we've done Torm, which was lingonberry, heather honey, and heather tips. The best. That one was a Forest Series one, and I was inspired by when I was back home in Scotland, just visiting the Highlands, and then realizing, like, all of this stuff is growing together. It tastes great, and it all grows in Estonia. But luckily, it comes a few weeks later, so we still have time to do a beer around it. We've done white currants, which are a really underused berry. We're going to be doing some quince, which is it's used a lot over in Estonia, and it's got a very different flavor than what you might be used to as, like, British quince. It's very
super tart.
Yep. Super tart. Really exciting stuff.
So when you like this beer, then look out for the kind of similar feel on the label. And so our Imperial Goses are the similar ABV, and then kind of always changing the game, new approach.
So all of the beers that we're tasting today, except for the Pilky, are extremely strong. So aside from that dark beer edge that you have and that Estonia loves, is beer generally stronger in Estonian culture, or is it a way that you guys separate yourselves? So actually, beer is generally quite weak, and you want to be different.
We talked about the lager country, so the lager is still 4.7-ish, so to say. So in that sense, it's no difference. But when we came on to the game, it's. I like to compare. In the early days, when you had to explain to somebody the craft beer, then it was like, first of all, it's a burger game. You only used to have McDonald's. Now, like 15 years ago, it's craft burger, so to say, gourmet burger. It's the same thing, but can cost like 10 times different. It's only the ingredients that go into, and also the good, comparison for me is like a French cooking. You can't be shy with the butter and cream. The same. Is that you don't count calories or ABV on these beers when we started. Now, with our personal lifestyle is perhaps a bit changing. We are bringing in much lower ABV beers. We are introducing Suvila 3.8 session IPA for this summer. Suvila means summer house, so it's a summer house IPA, session IPA 3.8, our new hit. But yeah, it's definitely connected to the fact that we are coming. It was snowing 2 days ago, by the way. So it's coming. We are coming from cold countries. So it's historically, people are used to drink higher alcohol and a bit higher volumes. So it definitely has not been a problem until recently. So to say, personal changes in life. Because until it wasn't too much of a problem, But of course, market is also dominating the game. So there's a need for lower ABV beers.
Yeah.
To be more serious side.
I would say it's also it also comes down a little bit to and this applies to pretty much every brewery over here. Is Estonia is not the biggest country in the world. It's like 1.3 million people, and a lot of the beer that all of us produce here does go to export. Like a lot of people, tourists will come from Finland, will come from other countries, and they'll buy some to go. So there's kind of there's less need to fall into like a pretty rigid this range of ABV, and you can kind of rather go with what suits the beer style.
We brought a very good commercial aspect out that we do export also to the North America and Far East, and we do not send 3.8 session IPA there. So it's especially beers like this and the ones that come now. So this actually is a big player of our export game to faraway territories. Exactly, starting from this beer and then moving forward to the dark ones. Because to be honest, this one is a little bit like a dark beer. It definitely ages and changes in time, and I recommend to actually keep on one to one. Definitely to keep in the fridge, but still, it's definitely a little change coming in that beer.
We've had some questions about the labels because there's some beautiful artwork on all of the labels for today. Where who does the labels and where does the inspiration come from?
This is Mark is our partner and our designer from day one. So he's also author of the Põhjala logo and from basically he has done all the labels since the beginning. One guy. So there's a very constant take on things, and we're very happy to be partnered up with early stage with such a talented guy, and he lives nearby. He's all around here all the time here, and we're great friends, and he's a beer guy too. So it's not just that we have ordered labels from some agency. It's very close connected friend that is doing labels for us, part of the Põhjala family, so, no doubt.
And is there a relationship between the recipes or the names and the labels, or are they two sort of independent things that tend to come together?
This is a good time for Chris to talk, because because Mark, our designer, he doesn't start before we have a name of the beer, and then he connects with Chris and.
Yeah, I mean, just like the beers evolve, the labels evolve as well. But we'll always shoot over like exactly what the beer is going to be, what we expect it's going to taste like, because those are all very important things. And you can see, like Peter was mentioning, some of the same series of beers. They'll often have like a running theme going through there. So it's pretty important that like that keeps up with the way that the beer is evolving. This particular one actually kind of pioneered, I think, for us the slightly shiny label back at Tallinn, and the sort of the weathery forecast thing. Some other ones like the Moonraker series that we've got, that sort of highlights like a whole other aspect, like representing hops in another space. so to say. So yeah, they're always very linked. They're not always sometimes obviously linked, but they normally are if you kind of when you know
depth.
Yeah, exactly. Take a couple of steps away and turn your head, and then you might get into his mindset of why they're related.
Not maybe rushing ahead, but it's not the case with our next beer. So that has a cheesecake on it, in the name and on the label.
That's true.
So sometimes you go full literal.
Exactly. Yeah. We can't go too abstract. So something you have to just say what it is, show it what it is.
But again, always playing around a little bit. The upcoming Suvila that you mentioned earlier, the 3.8% session IPA, is a great label because the name Summer House, the beer is designed as like the ultimate refreshment, summer sort of good times vibe, and the label sort of just represents that like retro feel of like the best summer you ever had. So it's like that's one where it's like we're not focusing on the ingredient, we're focusing on the enjoyment of the beer, the experience of the beer, and kind of interpreting that like abstractly. That's kind of the.
All right. It's not gonna be. It's a early work, but it's not gonna be the white can, but you can get the vibe of the Suvila. It's like a retro photo of a group of guys hanging out. And we talked about the lager. So this is also not. It's like a test work here, but that's our lager gonna look like. So it's very out of the. We just talked about the beautiful labels and the abstractism, but this is just like to show that this is the great craft lager beer, and we want to talk about also that the father of a craft beer aficionado can be introduced to the beer. That sometimes somebody that has been saying like no, I don't touch these beers. So this is actually we have put out on the market for this summer is also this lager beer. Just like
you're hoping to get a slightly wider appeal with the session IPA and the Pilsner to bring more people in.
Yeah, this is definitely just encourage people to get connected and familiar with this craft beer world, because it's still like in Estonia we've been talking about the great beer country, but I think we're still basically at 4 or 5% from the overall market with the craft beer from the big market, the beer market. So we feel that there's a grow and it has to come to we see that many brewers understanding that this kind of is a tool just to get the wider people in. Plus, there's also like a kind of a little bit. I wouldn't say that the people are tired of too much game going on, too many tastes. So they just want to be, like Chris said, like, there's movement starting that they just want to stick to one low ABV, like not too much dominant beer that you can just drink all night long.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
And earlier
these are
about
the same offerings for the same talk we just had.
we had some comments earlier about when we get cans, because a lot of people are just finding bottles in the UK, but are you sort of distributing cans here as well?
Cans, no, we're not. We're just in the middle of installing earlier today and tomorrow. I'm doing some more installing on our canning line. It just arrived last week, and we're hoping to test it out next week. But
And the UK market, I think the earliest we can think of is sometime second part of May, something like that. So definitely keep an eye on the cave channels, and they are our partners in UK, and definitely once we have the fresh beer in the cans, they will be importing some. So look out for the cans.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
We're a little late to the party, but never better late than never.
Yeah, exactly.
I think bottles are charming. I think that the design is beautiful on the bottle as well. Obviously, we had a comment that it's like the sort of the best era of Cloudwater when they had a beautiful bottles. So it's not a bad thing in my eyes. It just looks great.
Thanks. This is because a big part of our beers will remain in the bottles, of the dark game, because that is not harmed that much by the daylight, or there's actually even the hoppy beer and the lighter beers, especially, that are harmed by the UV and all that.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the footprint of a can is much smaller than a bottle.
True that.
This is coming more and more, standard to be looking at these things.
Yeah. So for many reasons, we're very excited to get this canning line up and running. The bottles are always going to remain they're always going to have their place in the beverage world for sure, and I think we play a role in that definitely. I mean, however much people want to, you can't really wax a can, in my opinion anyway. You can, but yeah, we don't plan on that.
No wax cans. No, sorry, Chris. No wax cans.
I hope Chris is being facetious there. Right, can we watch the next video for the next beer and get stuck into some cheesecake?
Let's do that.
Absolutely. Time for dessert.
Do it.
This here is my ride home, and over here we've got a load of tanks. There's a load of people working very hard to make this all happen. I'm not one of them, but I get to enjoy it. These here are some of the very first cans that we're going to start filling. They'll have a beautiful, delicious lager coming into them pretty soon. And this room we don't talk about yet. We'll talk about it lots later. So this little patch of land, this is Cheesecake Island, which coincidentally is the name of the next beer that we're going to have in this tasting. It's a Imperial Baltic Porter that's brewed to be basically liquid dessert, liquid cheesecake. It's delightful. It's one of my favorites.
For a second there, I thought it was just going to be me when we came back, but Chris came, and there's Bradley.
Hey.
But I've just realised while I was looking through our banners that we flash up. Firstly, support our channel. Let's get the super chats going again. We can't buy that chartered flight without you guys asking us some questions.
We're buying a boat, Johnny. We're buying a boat, and then we're going to.
Okay, so the budget's lower now. It depends on the boat, I guess. You can also join our Patreon from $1, patreon.com/craftbeerchannel, and you get access to our amazing forum full of beer geeks, homebrew geeks, and me and Brad being idiots. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I've forgotten to do what I do on every live show, which is talk about the beers in emojis that I find on WhatsApp.
Emoji.
So we missed the bread and the lemon. We missed the spruce, mango, and orange. I was guessing. I hadn't had that beer before.
That's a mango.
Yeah, that's a mango. Then Vikerkaar. That's the closest I could find to rhubarb, a pink rose. And then some green pininess and some sourness from the lemon. So for this one, I've got coffee, cake, and lemon.
Right on, money.
Let's see if I'm right.
Cheers. Yeah, let's do the thing.
So one thing about this beer and the next one coming up, by the way, as well, is definitely they should be a little bit on the warmer side, not the fridge temperature, as I think you mentioned. But we have the serving temps on there.
If you haven't done so yet, so just warm it up with like that, please. Yeah. It will just taste much better at our recommended serving temperatures.
It's a beautiful looking beer. Look at that lovely.
This is easily at 16 what we're having. 16, 18.
Oh, blimey. This is serious.
Whoa. Whoa.
So yeah, welcome to Cheesecake Island.
Loads of lemon. I'm really pleased that it's a big lemon cheesecake. Loads of lemon rind. And yeah,
that's why we had to put it on the label, so it's so obvious. So that's why this one is on the label.
Just in case you didn't get it from the aroma, it's cheesecake.
Yeah,
exactly.
Everybody's loving it. Delicious.
And this is also part of the series, by the way. So it's a Cheesecake Island. We have released Cherry Island. and we have a couple of other travel plans in mind. And this is all connecting to the fact that, Estonia is a very tiny country, the size of Holland by territory, 1.3 million people, but we do have 2,222 islands. So it's just 4 twos. You islanders, hello.
But before we get to the delicious nonsense that is the more pastry side of this, tell us about Baltic Porter, because it's not a well-known style. It has a lot in common, with dark lager, somewhere between a dark lager and an imperial stout. But what does it mean to you guys, and what history can you tell us?
Well, yeah, historically it's a very interesting style, and I kind of feel like it's under-researched as well. The more that we've dug into it, the more we kind of feel like there's a lot more to the story than what we know at the moment. Starting with that comment that you say about like dark lager and imperial stout, the relationship there. What we kind of have found is that there's almost like two different sides to Baltic Porters, that it should really be two separate styles. There's like the more eastern side where we are, where Poland is, where Finland is. This is more deriving from like the old British imperial stout tradition, but with the continental ingredients, continental twist. Whereas if you go closer to like Sweden, Denmark, areas like this, then the Baltic Porter is actually more just like a dark lager, like a slightly stronger dark lager. So that's kind of why we feel it's actually two very distinct styles. But even then, we've had our friends from Pinta in Poland who also do a lot of Baltic Porters, and they there we had some quite intense discussions, because they were all like, oh, for Poland, then Baltic Porter must be this, and we were like, for Estonia, it has to be this, and they were kind of clashing on a lot of areas. So even within those two, what I think of as sub-styles, and there's a lot of like distinct regional variations, which was pretty funky. But yeah, for us, a Baltic Porter is it's something that very much exemplifies the terroir and the sort of the relationship that Estonians have with drinking beer at that time. It should be strong, it should be sweet, it should be dark, but it shouldn't necessarily be roasty and bitter, because I think we have a bit of a sweet tooth up here in a lot of ways. And that's why our particular one, it focuses a lot on like the red. Obviously, this has got a lot of other things going on, but our typical Baltic Porters, for example, they go very heavy on like red fruit characteristics rather than like roasty bitterness. It's a style that has only recently got modernized, and yeah, that's what
there's a little friendly feud going on, I would say, between Estonia and Poland about the originations of the Baltic Porter. And the Poles actually have called out the Baltic Porter Day, which is I think 25th of January, or somewhere there.
Then,
And in honor of that, in taking a little funny aspect of that, we brewed with Polish colleagues from Pinta. We called the beer called Baltic Pride. And this was actually summarizing all that. I wouldn't say like a feud, but it's just like argument, like where is it from? But I would have aspect that the Baltic Porter actually is called by the London brewers, because originally, the areas from the Baltic states started to order stronger porter from London brewers that stronger than they were used to brew, and the London brewers called it Baltic Porter. But that business lasted very short, because there were a lot of smart people who figured out like why bring that beer from so far away territory. So that's where all these brewers started to pop up here by the Baltic Sea, brewing that same style. That, as all porters, is.
But they all developed their own take on it, because they went,
exactly.
we could make this where we are. But yeah.
So, for example, one of the more interesting ones, like I'm glad you mentioned that, is Courage and a lot of their stronger dark beers from way back. This is one that was like, you can see that it was actually exported over into the Russian Empire at the time, but when the Napoleonic Wars started up, and effectively the UK was barred from sending things to much of the continent, then there was this sort of need to brew these things over here. So they had to adapt that knowledge, and they had to adapt very quickly. So we had.
Hey, Yuri.
Oh, hi. So you can actually notice that that's when a lot of these Baltic porters started up. But obviously they had to use the ingredients around themselves, like the continental ones. So it was pretty interesting there. And the other thing as well, of course, is it's very, very commonly told that Baltic porters are sort of like an imperial stout brewed with a lager yeast, effectively. But that's not, again, the entire story, because depending on where you are, when we first started having Baltic porters come from Estonia, then lagers as a whole were a relatively new thing. So for it to suddenly have made an appearance in a beer style based off of a British imperial stout, it simply doesn't add up in many ways that we're looking at. So for us, we actually have a little bit of a nod to that, and our Baltic porters are fermented at cooler temperatures, but with an ale yeast, as they would have been back in the original days over here. It obviously would have moved over when lagers became trendier, but that's how we do it. But again, for the Poles, then it's always been done with the lager yeast, and they still do it that day because we did it first.
Slip it in. Yeah, it's tempting, I think, when we talk about beer history to make sweeping generalizations, and even within the UK we've had huge variation in our styles, so to assume that the entirety of the Baltic Sea was brewing Baltic porter in exactly the same way is pretty naive, really.
Come on, don't get much better than this.
Ooh.
There you go.
Nice. That is a blast from the past.
Cheers, Magnus.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and another one actually about the Baltic Pride that Peter was mentioning. This one with us and Pinta. That was cool because it was actually a blended beer, a blend of Baltic Porter our way and Baltic Porter their way, and putting the two together. So sort of like harmonizing and sort of giving each other a big like high five. That it's better when we're together, sort of thing.
This is a really sort of I think bottle share kind of beer. It's one of those beers like you could see when me and Brad first got the aroma. You just want to talk about it. You just want to go, oh my god, this, and this, which is what I think is so brilliant about kind of more pastry style brewing, where there's so much to talk about, so many aromas that are popping out that you remember that are nostalgic and all of this. Is there a sort of a pastry movement in the scene in Estonia in the same way? Are you guys the leaders in that, or are you a bit unique in doing it?
Yes, we are leaders.
Good. Clear that one up.
There are plenty. No, I mean every Estonian, self-respected Estonian craft brewery, is releasing some sort of a similar lines or series, and kind of still a little bit perhaps a little rivalry even, trying to trump each other with a bit of creativity, and while this is very classic, I would even say perhaps American classic, well, then there's definitely, even in our portfolio and in many others, like some little niches that we find from a local cuisine, and we implement into the beer. Again, can't talk too much, but there's interesting news coming in the end of the year from us again. Anyway, yeah,
we love a tease. That's great.
Everyone's just loving the beer selection, guys. We're getting comments saying this is the best we've ever put together. So, props to you guys. It's amazing stuff.
We're also getting some comments that Brad wants to skip over. Like, Brad looks like he's going duck hunting.
Exactly.
Don't shoot the ducks.
I'm a crack shot. Don't be too cheeky. I used to go shooting. I'm a crack shot. I could have been on the English what's it called? Clay pigeon shooting team. I was told as a child.
Oh yeah, that's Olympic sport.
Yeah. I used to be a really. I'm a crack shot. What can I say? Maybe not while I'm drinking, but in my younger days, I was a crack shot. My dad used to be a shooter, so I've grown up around guns. It sounds really wrong, doesn't it? I don't shoot things. I just shoot.
This has suddenly turned into exactly the YouTube channel I never wanted to be part of. A guy with a beard in camouflage talking about how he was brought up around guns. That's right.
I agree. Let's turn the conversation back to trees.
Oh my! So while we're on the topic of outdoorsmanship, we've had a question, and I just promised I would come back to it, and I've lost it. But it's around Keek, Kiik.
That's me. That would be my family name.
Is that your?
Yeah.
But somebody's asking if you. Here we go. Here's the comment from Scott DiMatteo.
Oh, well, okay. The Keek. Okay, that's is Keee. Oh yeah. That's it's kind of yeah. It's a big sport here. I've never done it, but it's like a big swing with like a very long the poles that you kind of like when you go over, like you can be like a kind of 100 meters high. They can like attach like a fishing rod. It's like crazy shit. You're attached like with it, like you would be on the wakeboard. So you're like your feet are attached, and you just like swing over like. And the thing is that you have to be very strong that you actually like go over, because you have to like really have to have strong feet muscles to get yourself over that thing. And the competition is like the longer the pole, the stronger you are. Because you're like it's like a high jump. Like when you get over, then you're over. But you have to get from that like just with your own. They start like swinging, and then they get over. Like and the longest distance. But you imagine like they have to have like this like a ski jumping thing. It's like very very high poles.
I found a picture.
Yeah. Highly suggest you use very interesting.
Yeah. It's basically like a swing. Are you trying to go fully around it?
Yeah, exactly. And the longer your swing, the stronger you are, basically. So it's
wow.
One of our previous English expats over here actually took quite a liking to it, and basically traveled the country trying to like get into a team for it.
I mean, I remember as a kid trying to make the swing go all the way around when I was sat on it in the park. So it's kind of like that, but for adults, insane.
Yeah, but the further away you are from the top, it's the harder it is to actually get to the point that you would be swinging. So that actually is a massive force that you are creating yourself. So it is a athletic sport, but I've only seen people done. I've never been on it, so I don't really. I wouldn't feel that comfortable up there. So, but
somebody questioned am I a Trump supporter? I'm not. I'm a Bernie.
It's not as massive as Sauna. Let's put it this way: it's not as massive as Sauna. Disc golf is way bigger.
I think you should combine it with Sauna, and then you're onto something there. That will be you can like jump into it from the Keek.
That was
or deal with your injuries afterwards is probably more likely.
Out of the Keek into the sauna.
Oh.
I like the image of you doing duck shoots from it. I think you and your camo with a shotgun. Yeah, flying with the ducks because they can't see you, and you're up there. Never mind. Matthew asks how often we do these events. They're monthly, and yes, they do go off into tangents like this quite often. So if you're enjoying that, do join us monthly for these. Events. Brad doesn't always come in cameo dressed as a Trump supporter, but if that's what you guys want, we'll do it. MAGA Brad, there we go.
Not MAGA Brad, anti-MAGA. This is made by. I don't want to get to whatever, but this is made by Maharishi. He's a real hippie brand. and this they've reclaimed camouflage, and it's been blessed by Buddhist monks. This jumper I'm wearing. So they've taken an implement of war and made it a sort of symbol of peace. So there you go. I'm anti-MAGA, and I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm directly the opposite of that, despite the fact I look like I'm going duck hunting.
There you go.
There you go.
I've got a question. So we'll bring it back to basics because we haven't really talked about how these flavors have got in there. So how was how did the lemon zest and the vanilla, how was that added and in what way?
So those are two very straightforward answers. By lemon zest and by vanilla. But as to how, so those are both after fermentation. Those are both effectively a dry hop on there. We've got a load of lemon zest, and we infused it into we recirculated the whole beer. We pumped the whole beer through the lemon zest to pick up those sweet, delicious citrus oils from the zest, and then we centrifuged it, and we realized that we actually wanted a bit more lemon, so we added some more. And for the vanilla, it's two different types. It's Madagascan and Tahitian, and again, it's just a load of that. And vanilla is a very fun one because we found that, like, again, you can actually reuse it a second time and get a little bit more complexity out of it sometimes. So this is a mix of as much vanilla as we had left there, plus a load of fresh stuff. And we just wanted to give you that sort of like bite of a cheesecake. We used a load of oats in the brewing side as well, like I think 3 or 4 different types of oats in the mash. Because the
biscuitiness.
Yeah, exactly, to just really drive home that biscuity character, and that little hint of like toasty baked sort of cheesecake just fresh out the oven. There's also a wee bit of lactose in it as well, just to add that little hint of extra sweetness that we wanted. The idea was to make a cheesecake in a glass, and that's pretty much how we did it. We're always trying to get the best out of the ingredients in that way. So,
yeah, I think it's quite remarkable how, as soon as you said sort of fresh out the oven baked cheesecake, that's exactly what I get from this. It's not like cheesecake a couple of days later or even cheesecake mix. It's literally just out the oven, which I think is maybe there's that caramelized kind of vibe from the malts as well that just makes it feel like it's cooked. And it's amazing how nostalgic and interesting these
that's a good idea.
Well done, Anna.
An affogato style thing, Anna. That sounds amazing.
I would be lying if I'd said that I haven't made a ice cream float out of this. Highly recommend.
Are you lying? No. Okay.
We've got a couple of people saying that they can't pick out the lemon. Don't be disheartened by anything. When we talk about flavors that are there, everybody's palate's different. It's dependent on A, like your genetics, B, like your background, whether you've been tasting beer forever or whether you've always loved a certain style, so your flavors might be different, or it might just be what you had for dinner that's numbing certain parts of your palate compared to others. So never feel like your palate's not good enough or you've served it at the wrong temperature. Like, probably the warmer it gets, the more lemon you might get, but there's a million different factors to go into what we taste, so never feel bad about not getting it or getting something different. If you get lime, that's cool. Lemon and lime are similar. Or if you don't get lemon at all, but there's this thing you can't quite put your finger on, it's probably lemon, but it hasn't sort of made that connection in your
lime
head.
pie.
Yeah, that would be very good. Key lime pie island.
There you go. That's the next one. I saw somebody say Tiramisu Island. I was into that.
Ooh, yes.
Sorry, the keys.
But that's a great point as well, because like we do taste panels very regularly down in the brewery, and like we've all gone through as much taster training as we possibly can, and we still very often have arguments of like, this thing is massive. What do you mean? I don't get it at all. Everyone is different, so, and it really does depend on so many factors. Taste is a wonderful thing, but it's so subjective.
And it's not just the tasting.
Exactly,
It's
Brad,
not just
exactly.
the tastings of the beers, but it's also preparing for them when we're seasoning something. It's still something. We have a chance to have an idea how it tastes, and then there's definitely arguments or like how people are approaching or getting the taste.
We just had a super chat come in. Chris, do you speak Estonian?
I know natukene, just a little bit. I'm in between all of this. Then I'm trying to learn, but it's been a slower process than I'd like. I'm not clever enough to learn languages.
We're making life too easy for him because Estonia in that sense a little kind of a bilingual because we are a small country, 1.3 million people. The only people who have a hint what we say are Finns, and that's also sometimes very confusing. So it's almost a language with no relatives or very few. But Chris is making progress. He's picking up. He understands way more than he shows out. So he's keeping it. That is a secret weapon.
I was going to say it could be a clever ruse. He speaks it perfectly, and he knows everything you say about him in Estonian.
Yeah, and he only says, "Oh, not to Kenna. That's just a little bit." Goes home and blah 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 blah.
But it's a very interesting language. Highly recommend if you like languages to look into it because it's very unrelated to like any other European languages.
It's a Finno-Ugrical language group, so it's the three major languages that are related is Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian. So the funny thing is that us with Finns, we can there's a lot of words meaning the same, like Põhjala name means the same in Finnish, the same meaning, while Hungarian we don't understand at all. But historically, they say we're related, so they're just like these three lost languages.
I mean, so it's the same alphabet as English. It's not from the
Yes.
Russian alphabet. It's
Latin alphabet, just a couple of extra letters, mainly vowels.
Yeah. Wow, amazing. I
went to art school with a friend called Arvid, who was Finnish, and he was a Finnish border guard on the Russian border that was trained in sort of machine guns and all kinds of stuff. Apparently, do you have national? I don't know why I'm asking you this. I'm wearing military gear. Is it like national in Finland? He was. We all went to art school, and like he had to go in the military service, which he said sucked. Military service there, guys?
Oh, do we Estonia? Do we have military service? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And actually, it's actually proudly and widely participated. So people are very proudly participating in that sense in defense systems. So yeah.
How was your experience in there?
Fuck you. Me personally, I did not attend. It was shady times. It was the early 90s, shady times. I skipped it. So, but I always had my ways.
I'm
a proud supporter of our armed troops. They come often. Sorry, there is some army bases nearby. Because we are the seaside, so there's a Navy base nearby, so sometimes guys come over, so we support them.
Cool. I'm definitely pretty drunk. This is heavy going for a night. Like all of these beers are so strong. I mean, they're all great, and I've drunk the majority of pretty much everything I've cracked, which is slightly concerning now. We're nearly on to the final beer. Oh my god.
There is that wonderful moment in an evening where you can just be like, yeah, I've made a mistake here. Like it hasn't hit you yet, but you know that tomorrow's ruined, but the night isn't quite. But Brad, keep it together. We've got one more beer and the Q&A to go.
Oh dear.
And then it can all go south without a worry.
Great stuff.
I think it probably is time to move on to the final beer. Again, like I said at the start, if you've fallen behind, don't feel you have to race. This live show will be up again once this is all over. It stays live forever. It's with you forever, and you can go back and reference it. But we'll be talking through all the beers that are in the pack. Also, while I've got you, please do, if you want to ask a question, skip the queue. Make sure you get asked at a certain time. You can use the super chat function, which supports what we do and pays for things like tonight, which happen every month. And also, you can join our Patreon, our Discord forum. From $1 a month, you can support what we do and join our amazing Beer Geek friends in the Discord forum. And you get patches, you can get glassware. That's what we had last year, or special gifts, or even signed, hand-printed posters. Which Brad, we need to send out a couple. We've had a couple of $30.
We did send them out. They're up in my loft, and I've lost my ladder, Johnny. So I think
that is a unique excuse. You've lost your ladder.
Well, I've lent my ladder to somebody, and we're in a lockdown. So
that makes more sense.
You need to get on my shoulders next time you're round, and I'm going to artfully push you up into my loft.
That sounds great. As long as we haven't had any Põhjala Baltic porters beforehand. Right, let's watch the video on our final beer, which is Black Jam, and we'll see you guys in a second.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll make it work somehow with that. So, like I say, this is our warehouse. We store a load of things here. Probably the thing you're most interested in is what we store right around the corner. You saw a few of them out there, but one of the things we're most known for is our barrels. And we have a lot of barrels in here. A load of Pedro Jimenez over here, some bourbon, some mezcal, some scotch, and a whole load of cognac. This is the birthplace for our next beer, which is Black Jam. And this one was a super cool fusion of sherry, Pedro Jimenez, and bourbon barrel-aged Baltic porters. We were kind of fusing the old world and the new world, and it worked insanely well. So this is where all those beers come from. This is their sort of birthplace, their hometown, their hood. So you've had a chance to see the place. We hope that when we can get back to traveling, that maybe some of you guys will make it over to Tallinn, and we actually offer brewery tours, so we can give you a bit more of an in-depth look at all of this stuff. And in the meantime, tonight, if you want to know more about anything, ask whatever questions come to your mind. That's what we're here for. So see you then. See you now.
See you then, see you now. I love that. That's a catchphrase, Chris. See you then, see you now.
He's a very, very charismatic man by the camera.
I just say it's easy to get confused after tasting some of these beers. So I don't know what it is.
All right then. Tell us about this beautiful Black Jam then.
All right, Black Jam. I'm going to start with the magical secret of how do you open this. You're going to have to sort of take my word for it because the sample that I have does not have wax on it, but believe me, it'll work. So you take it in your hand, you hold it around here so that you're kind of your hand is warming up the wax, and you just leave it there for like
15, 20 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
The warmth of your hand will warm the wax, you know.
Yeah,
it's wax.
Yeah.
It's warm, it's soft.
And what you can then do is you want to take a bottle opener. It's ideal if you've got one that's like a wine one, which has the little knife thing. But if it has a sharp edge, that's already okay. Don't try and use like a sharp knife or anything. You don't need that much force if it's warmed up slightly. And what you do is you then take your knife, you cut along, or if you've got another one, then you just make a little edging there. You'll see the cap, and then you can just pop. See? Easy. Even I can do it.
Just need to see a little bit of that gap, and really, because people are sometimes really pissed off at our wax, you know. They say like, you know, cracks open, it's all over the place. But first of all, then your bottle is too cold. First of all, your bottle should not be cold when you're drinking a barrel-aged beer. Exactly, you know, like get the little hole there, and then, you know, it opens nicely. Exactly.
Oh,
beautiful.
Oh, so great.
Oh, it was looking so good. Let's final
when
test.
When it's warmed up, there's no chips.
Yeah,
there's no chips into your bottle. So
that's
it makes sense to warm it up.
I've never bothered to warm the wax up before, but that did make it a lot easier, guys.
And you can also put it sometimes under your hot tap water. If you don't bear to do it with your hand, that is just if you don't have tap water around. But the hot tap water will do. just warm up the backs, and it will be no chips. It will be very easy to open.
Gotta say,
Because
that was one weird trick, and it was great.
That is your one weird trick. It's actually, when you think about it as well, like heating wax, making it more liquid. When we realized it's great.
All right.
Anyway, enough about that, and on to the beer.
The best part. We do really enjoy our dark barrel-aged beers ourselves, and even in our summer nights, because in Estonia we don't have too hot nights, so it's actually very nice to sit at any night of the year with these beers.
So it's a great warming nightcap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's,
that aroma. I mean, I loved the aroma of the last one, but the complexity of you've got wet oak, you've got vanillin, you've got kind of sherry notes, you've got chocolate coming through, really dark chocolate. You've got some soft, really acidic coffee, lightly roasted coffee. Oh, it's just heavenly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful beer, and sadly, it was far too small a batch. We kind of wish we'd had made more of the components, but that's how it goes.
Sold out really quickly.
Yeah.
And you said it's even more complex, and naturally, because this is the only barrel-aged beer we are drinking here, because the previous beer was something that we wanted to create you like a close to experience, but this is just a classic through barrels and the depth of the tree. We're coming back to the trees again. The wood.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Wood is almost like the fourth ingredient in beer. It certainly would have been 150, 200 years ago. It's all we had, but now it's coming back. There's so much wood that we use.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with it as well. It's what I really love is, when we first started barrel aging, way back in 2015 or so, 2014 already, then we kind of what we can do now versus what we knew then. It's insane. The industry as a whole has just pushed so forward. That was one of the things that we actually bonded over originally, was just what breweries are doing with wood and what unexplored potential there can be.
Exactly. The barrel-aged beers actually was something that we felt when through our first talks that we were most passionate about, both of us. And then Chris introduced us to his whiskey fucking chest. It blew me away, I had known the guy 3 days, he invited to his house and offered me his whiskey chest. That was a big deal.
So talk to me about your barrel stores. So a lot of barrel stores, when you go into them, not a clean barrel store, not a souring barrel store, will be very bourbon and whiskey heavy. But it seems like you guys go more for the fortified wines and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, there's actually one of the big divisions there is French oak versus American oak. It comes down to quite as simple as that. We love bourbon, we love sort of whiskey, we love all things like that. But when we first started out, then Pedro Jimenez in the whiskey world, that was always kind of one of the kings. It's something that you don't see all that often because it's expensive, it's hard to do. But when you get it, it's so intense. The flavors are insane. And that really came forward. And likewise, cognac. Cognac is something that you especially are big fans of. And, we kind of saw that it was really underused in beer. Whereas a lot of the beers that we were doing are, they marry so nicely with it. A Baltic Porter with those red fruits, with that light coffee, it all plays so well into the cognac flavor profile. It plays great with bourbon as well, of course, but with cognac, it absolutely sings. It takes everything and turns it up to 12, which is kind of what we want to do. We don't want to add things. We want to take what's already there and turn them up in a lot of it.
And now with the new brewery and more space and more tools to play around, then we're also taking into this one is a blended beer, from different barrels, from different batches, and this is what really excites us, that the ability to create really new, unique tastes And when it's like a little bit like old school pharmacy, which is like hopefully we'll have even more different varieties of barrels and combinations, even if they're in small amount. That would be just great for a base of new blended beer. Yes, it will be one-off, but that's again like something I think we still need to keep in mind. What's the essence of all the craft beer world is the creativity and the excitement about something like new. Like we just presented you this like a classic lager type of can, but still like yes, we do that, but this is what really keeps us sticking too. It's and just keeps coming, because you saw the video from the Barrel Group. There's so many combinations in there.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things that really did excite us about this new place, is like not just having room for more barrels, but being able to do more with them.
Exactly.
So I mean, this particular beer, it's a blend of some of the beer inside this is over 2 years in a barrel. Not a lot of it, but just enough to give that sort of deep complexity in combining with all the rest of it. It's really, really fun, and blending is an aspect of barrel work that it doesn't come easy. It takes a lot to get into, and in a way, it's better to do it on a larger scale like this, because we can go around our barrel store and we can say, yes, this is going to work. No, we need like just a tiny, tiny hint of like something super peaty in here. Just a little hint of smoke.
This is so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask about the blending process with so many barrels. How does that process work? You have these beers that you brew. Do you already know roughly what barrels you want to put them in? And then once you put them in those barrels, do you have a whole team that comes together, or specific tasters that have a balance of, sensitivities to different things?
Normally what we do is when a beer is going into a barrel, normally then we have a very clear idea of what it's going to be. Sometimes we might put we might order a couple other barrels as well, just to see for the future what that's going to be like, to try and experiment a little bit more. Say you're doing, I don't know, 30 barrels into 30 barrels of cognac, but you'll order two of some other kind of whiskey or Pinot de Charente, and then you can kind of see and know what that barrel difference is going to be. But what we like to do is we like to have someone who's leading a particular beer release, so they know what flavor they want to get, and they can sort of artistically like fill in the canvas, let's say, and then the rest of us can assemble, and we can taste a couple different blends based around that, and we can say, okay, this one we're not super fond of, this one we really like the direction, this is good, maybe we can add just a little bit of this flavor into it as well, and then we can go digging into the barrel store and find that particular one. Or, to be honest, more often than not, they hit the nail on the head the first go, out of it, which is always pretty fun. Yeah, that's normally how we do it.
Do you have to prepare the beers differently depending on what spirit barrel you're gonna put them in? Is there that much sort of thinking, or is it just literally we want to then add these flavors?
It depends, because we very rarely have a single base beer that goes into multiple different types of barrels. Normally, depending on the barrel, depending on the beer going in, we would tweak the base recipe or base recipes quite a lot to try and match that. Say you've got a bourbon, then you may want to have like a slightly higher finishing gravity for that, because it might dry out depending on how long you want to leave it in the barrel for, and it might need that bigger boost going into it. You might also have. We might also have like if we're taking on one particular type of spirit barrel, then we may have to like treat it slightly differently as well. We may have to steam it for a little bit longer. We normally steam our barrels to remove a lot of the harsh alcoholic component, and also to make sure that they're nice and as sanitary as possible to like fill into beer and as leak proof as possible. But yeah, so that's basically how we do it. If that answers that question, I hope.
I just wanted that. I just saw a little. It's like some people are not liking the beer. So I'm just again like underlining that. Please, I hope that everybody has the beer warm because it makes a ton of difference. You know, it is beer meant to be drinking warm, and then it releases all its beauties. And if still no go, then
It's like picking spruce when it's cold and it's got all its energy in it. This needs to be a bit warmer to get
Pick it warm.
appreciation of
I
it.
mean, this beer, like taken from the fridge, would taste totally different and not enjoyable.
Yeah.
We can guarantee it. You know, it just needs to be at certain temperature.
Yeah, man, it's tasting bad.
Anyway, I think, like,
That was like one comment. It's all good. Great stuff.
I how can I phrase this correctly? It feels like, much as I love pastry beer, sometimes this style of brewing, the adding of lots of adjuncts and stuff, is to some extent finding shortcuts towards flavors that can be achieved either through malt or through hops or through barrel aging. You know, the adding of notes of coconut, vanilla, all this kind of stuff. Is that how you see pastry brewing, or do you see them as sort of quite different disciplines?
I wouldn't actually call that much this one in particular as a pastry beer. You know, it was definitely like the last one, but I mean, maybe.
Sorry, that's what I mean. Like, this one's very much in the barrel aged, big, beautiful barrel character that has coconut and vanilla and stuff.
To me, to be honest, I kind of view them as pretty different disciplines because, I know what you mean. They can definitely be they can be a way to shortcut to the complexity of a barrel aged beer, but at the same time, maybe a lot of them aren't necessarily needing to be as complex as it. And I think that like barrel aging is as a necessity, it's going to add a whole lot of complexity. It's going to add like that sort of micro oxidation, that maderization. You're going to get those hints of umami sometimes in there, which you might not necessarily want from a pastry stout, which is just kind of like very often that simple, straightforward, big, bold flavors. They have very much their own place. So to me, I view them as pretty different disciplines. But I can definitely see how a lot of the flavors are very similar there. Yeah.
You're shaking your head, Peter.
No. I misunderstood the question, and Chris explained it.
Oh,
very
I see.
well,
Okay,
so.
Yeah.
2 hours
I guess actually, like the best point of comparison for me for that would be like a wild ale versus a kettle sour. A kettle sour doesn't have to be lacking in complexity. It doesn't have to be a bad example of a sour. But it's never going to have the sort of depth of complexity that a wild ale might have. And a lot of the time, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of the time, that may not be necessary for what the sort of the author of that beer is trying to achieve. So yeah, I don't really view it as like sort of fast tracking or cheating their way to like a complex beer, because very often that's not necessarily what it's about. It's like a byproduct of how it's going about.
It's trying to be like pastry beers are like boom coconut, and a barrel aged beer might be like coconut and some other things.
Yeah. Like, to be honest, what we often think of when we're doing these panels for like the barrel aged beers is we sometimes rein it back a little bit as well, because like a pastry stout, we think of them as like a beer festival beer or a tasting room beer. It's something where you get like 100 mils or so, and it's a big boom wham. But often to drink like a larger pour of that may be more difficult. Whereas a barrel-aged beer, ridiculous as it may sound, we want to have it so that you can drink a whole bottle very comfortably. And if anything, it gets more complex. Your taste buds discover more what's going on the deeper you go into it. And sometimes if the flavor is too intense straight away, then it may not be as enjoyable throughout like the whole bottle. So,
I couldn't agree more about the difference between kettle sours and mixed firm, and that it's different occasions I think is what they're sort of made
Yes,
for.
exactly.
A sipping whiskey, and one's a I don't know what the opposite of a sipping whiskey is. Table whiskey? That sounds dangerous. Quick whiskey. Whatever it is that you just knack all night. I'm not quite sure.
Cooking whiskey.
Yeah. Well, you're drunk before you eat. Cool. So that wraps up the tasting portion of tonight. We've got just under half an hour, but we'll see how long we keep going for. In which we'd love you guys to ask any question that you want to ask. It doesn't have to be about beer. It doesn't have to be just to Pohjala. It could be to us. It could be about anything. And let's get a conversation going. So just drop them into the comments, and we will work our way through them as quickly as we can. If we didn't get to your question during tonight, totally ask that again. That's totally fine to do. Don't worry that you're spamming us, because we're really sorry if we missed it. And we'll dive through them and try and get through as many as we can. Again, if you want to guarantee you'll get your question asked, you can support the channel and do a super chat, but we will try to get through everything anyway. So I'm going to stay on top of this. I'm going to get there. I'm not going to get behind like I usually do.
Very important question, Johnny. Brad, please. Do you
call yourself Brad there?
Brad, I did. I'm pissed, mate. I'm feeling pretty drunk. Can you inform us where you got your macrame from? I think somebody else. That's quite nice, isn't it? Huh? That's from a charity shop, that is, over here. I think you call them op shops or thrift stores in America. Yeah, not a beer-related question, but Johnny, have you got any serious beer-related questions?
No, the first question was I flashed it up very briefly before you grabbed that one. Where's it gone?
You shouldn't have given me the reins, mate. I'm dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No
Out. Good.
No
of course.
No other way.
If you're a lady, you don't have to.
Birch leaves as well, isn't there? Right.
Yeah, you whip yourself, and it's a birch, and the other popular one is a juniper, which is you soak it in hot water before. The birch one you soak in tepid water, while juniper you put in hot water, so it gets the needles get a little softer, but it gets a really good massage.
So if you want to keep those needles hard, you put it in like colder water, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, Bradley. Good to know where you're at. We've just had a super chat, so I will come back to the other questions in a second. This is just for the plain fun. I promise you, if we do go to Estonia, we'll go keeking. Or I will.
Rubber dinghy to Estonia. Amazon 1 out of 5 star rated rubber dinghy right now.
There we go. So that's going to happen, and we'll keep. If you remember when we went to Vienna, me and Brad went on the highest swing carousel thing in Europe.
In the world. It was fucking terrifying, but amazing. It was basically a garden swing held up by very small bike chains. Swung us around at about 10 miles an hour.
It wasn't that bad, Bradley.
Oh, man.
Come on, you're an outdoorsman. You're brought up around guns and you're scared of a swing.
Yeah,
it sounds like great training for keeping then.
It does, yeah. We're adventurers, I tell you. Beer tube adventurers.
Oh, yeah.
To the Pohjala team, are there any Estonian breweries you'd recommend we try to expand our knowledge of the Estonian craft beer scene?
Yeah, there are many. The Pyhaste comes to our mind first, our great friends from Tartu. But Chris, you want to add up from other sides? There are many talented brewers in Estonia.
Port to the east of the country is very interesting as well. They have a tap room in Tallinn, so they're easy to get to. They're doing a lot of fun stuff. And I mean, there's one of the nice things is there's very, very many breweries popping up. And actually, as well as just breweries, there's a lot of fun places. Like when you're jumping back to the Vikerkaar, when you're talking about rhubarb and often having that as a sweet thing, we have a lot of like local fruit winery places that are doing rhubarb wines instead of champagne. And those are like really interesting stuff. So it's a gastronomic extravaganza.
It's fantastic cider farm that is doing the French way. The ciders exporting all around the world. It's fantastic craft scene, not just the beer.
Really good distilleries too.
Yep.
So
So yeah, it does
And-
sound absolutely amazing. We need to come.
And there are small shops that you can actually walk in, and you will, there's shops that I like to go in, and like just sometimes it's not like just a new beer from a brewery we know. Sometimes there's new brewery, because there's also quite active not craft, gypsy brewing scene, so not necessarily people owning the brewers, but trying their luck or expressing their ideas, either way.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting place to come. The food scene is fantastic. Because of the closeness to Finland and Sweden, we have a boat. We used to have boats running. They will come back soon. The restaurant scene is amazing because there's it's such a short ride from Finland. You can be here in 2 hours. And basically pay half of the price you would pay for a nice restaurant lunch you would do in Helsinki. And just like a small detail, so it's a great gastronomical city and country.
Yeah, there's too many to mention, to be honest.
Good.
Well, I promised you we will at some point with the Craft Beer Channel get over to Estonia, and we will be able to answer that question ourselves and get some more answers. We just had 2 super chats. Neither of them are really questions. Jim, who didn't like the beer, has taken some heat. But having other opinions is great, and that's why craft beer is great, because there'll be other people that love different styles of beer. Maybe you love the Pilky and other people didn't, so that's all good. Thank you, Sam, for all of your support, as always, as a pro Patreon and always on our live streams. Thank you.
Let's hear about the coffee beers.
Yeah, tell us about the coffee beers.
This is such a coffee aficionado, so it's all the coffee beer inspiration and input. He's a coffee guy.
Yeah, I've been a coffee nerd for a long time, and that's made its way into the beer. So we work with coffee a fair bit in different ways, and the best example of that is probably the Mustguld, which is our sort of famous core range porter, lovely beer. But we do a number of spins off of that with different coffees, different types of it added in different ways. And we've explored quite a lot of that. So, it's kind of like, it's been really fun for us to see like what has been our personal favorite versions of Mustguld as a coffee beer and what has been everyone else's personal favorites. One of the most recent ones was, there was one in between, but there was also a Mustguld vanilla latte, which was taking the coffee and then adding that little extra twist. And then we've also had versions of Mustguld with like Colombian coffees, with Kenyan coffees, Costa Rican coffee. Costa Rica coffee goes into Cocoa Banger as well. And it's all very often added in different ways. So it's kind of like a constant evolution in how we're looking at coffee brew practices.
We did a collab with Other Half that coffee.
Yeah. Hamerick, using Brazilian coffee and Tahitian vanilla beans, which was pretty interesting. We'd never really worked with Brazilian coffee before, but Sam from Other Half, he was a big fanatic about it because like it's big, bold coffee flavors. So yeah, it was very interesting.
The coffee thing is so big thing among the brewers. It's people travel with their own coffee grinders and their own coffee and all the techniques, and it's a big deal in the craft beer world.
Yeah.
Right, we're getting behind on the questions, so let's rattle through a couple.
Power through.
I'd love to geek out about coffee as well. I'm a coffee noob and I'm getting into it, but
we can go over a little bit if you guys need to go to sleep or I don't know. So it's like,
hey,
please.
I was about to say I'm here until the questions are done, but there might not be, so I won't say that. But let's rattle through a couple. We addressed this at the start of the show, but somebody's just asking what Põhjala means. If you could run through that very quickly again.
It's Põhjala. It is a northern. It's a geographical term meaning northern realm, northern territory, and it has a little bit of mythical touch to it. So I would say it means like a dark, cold land up there. It's up north, basically.
I think I'm right in thinking that Estonia was the last place in Europe to be pagan before it was Christianized.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
Estonia, Latvia,
and it is still the one of the least religious countries in the world. So,
Good stuff.
but that doesn't mean that people don't believe in stuff. This is the thing. Their religion basically relies again in the forest. We get back to the trees. We are a tree-hugging country, so
Yeah, all that stuff.
that's where our God lies.
It's what's real.
For most of us, yeah.
That's why Brad came
and,
in camouflage.
when you put Pohjala into Google Translate, it gives you just Nordic.
What means Nordic? Sorry, what?
No. When you type Pohjala into Google Translate, it just gives you Nordic.
Really?
But it has so much to it.
Tristan asked if homebrew is ever barrel aged, and 100% they do. I mean, that was happening. Bourbon County Stout was probably the first really big commercial example of barrel aging by Goose Island, but homebrewers were doing it for years beforehand. I imagine that's kind of where it came from. A lot of homebrewers are the inspiration behind the bigger batches that end up happening.
Yeah. I always remember hearing stories about like homebrew clubs getting together and buying a barrel, and everyone brews beer to fill it, and
and then
really,
they blend it.
really inspiring.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. David asks, have you got a dream collaboration you haven't ever done?
Oh,
I think we kind of are living the dream, but please go on. You definitely have some.
We've been very very happy to be able to do a lot of our dream collaborations already, but we definitely have some. We do a beer festival every year, Tallinn Craft Beer Weekend, and we normally do a bunch of collaborations around then. We were gonna hit up around about like most of my dream collaborations with last year's festival, but we're gonna hopefully get back to them later on. There's a couple of breweries that are like maybe would be surprises in there, but around that one, then we were going to be brewing with friends over at Finback. We were going to be doing with Weihenstephan. We're going to be doing with Holy Mountain in Seattle. There were a couple of fun breweries, and yeah, we're very fortunate that our dreams tend to come true. So yeah, there's too many to list.
Because the best collab is for us definitely is like we value our collabs very highly, and these when you see us putting a collab out, this means true friendship. So collab usually for us is expression of friendship and love for what we do, and love for each other. So we sometimes get the emails like, we are this and that brewery, we would like to collaborate with you, and we always say that it needs a little flirt with us first. We need to get to know each other before, and so yeah. So to say, we've been very lucky that we have made so many friends around the world, and with many of them we have been lucky to brew at ours, or it's very important for us also to brew at the other place. Even now, when we were kind of forced, but we just wanted to hang out with our friends, and when we have done a Zoom collaborations, it's like one beer is brewed at ours, the other beer is brewed at other brewers. So it's not always. It's often like just exchange ideas and state of mind at the moment.
We've had another super chat from Chris Stoneham, who says, "What's the next thing you want to explore in craft beer that you haven't really nailed yet? Is there something you're experimenting with?"
I could say right now it would be cans, but that's probably not the best answer.
We haven't talked about alcohol-free beers.
That's true.
We just released the alcohol-free Berliner Weisse with raspberries. So it's we rather call it it's a Berliner Weisse. It's technically not correct, but it's coming down from our Berliner Weisse. So it's a raspberry sour, Prenzlauer Zero. So it's fantastic sour beer, definitely having a Berliner Weisse notes. So this is something that has kind of struck us that it is way more difficult to brew a great alcohol-free beer than to brew a beer with alcohol.
Yeah.
So this is definitely something that we want to be keeping up with the trends and us ourselves on the toes.
Yeah, I mean, one cool thing that we did last year actually was we had organized a half marathon around Tallinn, and we were able to use our alcohol-free IPA, and that could be like a refreshment, and that was a really cool thing. But alcohol-free beers have a lot of challenges. They have challenges in the brewing side and also in like far down the line. So it's something that we kind of are still really learning a lot about, and we feel like we're good, but we can be much better, and that's very important for us. If you'd asked that question about a year ago, then I would have said hazy IPAs, but I feel that I'm pretty confident in our evolution over the last year about how we're doing, and I'm very happy with what we've been putting out lately.
And let's not forget the other end, all the blending we just told you guys about. We've been here only like just over 2 years in this new building, so it's definitely, there will be a lot of good stuff coming from that barrel room again. So we are like, expanding our palette, and doing stuff on both ends, because this is craft brewing, it's not doing one thing. I think you should keep yourself on the toes, I think that life should be vivid and exciting and creative, and that's what we are here to keep alive as well. I don't know if I got too poetical or lost.
No, not at all. I think questions like that would lead you to start to question what it is that you haven't quite nailed yet. Just before we get on to Brian's question, I've managed to lose. We had 2 questions just asking me and Brad what our favourite beers were of the night, and for me it's definitely the last one. I think Black Jam is just absolutely stellar. It's really barrel forward, which sometimes can be really unbalanced, but actually the blend of the 2 spirits, or rather the 2 barrels, is just so good with the fruit and with the malt. I think it's brilliant.
For me, it was Vikerkaar, or however you say it, Rainbow, which I just thought was awesome, and it just made me make dolphin noises because there's so much going on. It's like sort of eating a whole bag of Haribo Tangfastic at once, and then shoving some Himalayan sea salt in your mouth at the same time, and washing it down with something else sour and crazy. Yeah, it was wonderful.
I like the dolphin noses because exactly it gives you feeling like the fish on the dry land,
Yeah, it's just like crazy.
Exactly the noise Brad likes.
Brian has a question about the best before dates on the Cellar Series beer. So this is a good question because we've been now we are ranging between 3 and 5 years what we put on the 3 and 5 years what we put on the barrel aged beers. But our oldest barrel aged beer I think is maybe 6 years old. Something like that, 6.5 years old. So it's a rather difficult to put the date on it. And what we have achieved now with the new brewer definitely is our packaging line is way better, less any chance of oxidation getting into bottle. Plus, again, the waxing helps with the keeping the best before of the beer, even if it's in the room temperature. The wax just eliminates the chance of oxygen getting in. So. Very honestly to say, not all batches are brothers. It's not behaving the same, but I would easily say that we have been very, very conservative on our best before. So when they are kept in cold, let's say in the cellar conditions, 5 to 10 degrees, it could last easily 3 to 5 years extra. But as soon as they are at the room temperature, left in the apartment corner, it's actually, it could be less than what we had promised because we still assume that the beer is kept in cold conditions or cool conditions.
And constant temperatures.
The question
as well.
is like how sure we are about
Yeah,
the cellar
yeah,
series
yeah.
best before. So I say that we're concerned. You heard it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, constant cool temperatures are best. Don't let it get warm and cold, warm and cold.
Yeah.
Just keep it the
So
same.
that's why it's called cellar series. That's the best place to keep that beer.
Keep it in the cellar. Right, let's charge on because I'm getting further behind now. We've had
All
quite
right.
a few questions that I can't explain, but I guess people have had some chicken and waffles perhaps at your place that are amazing.
Oh, we are not the masters of the chef, masters of the kitchen. So Mike, our chef, is not here, but yeah, we can share. So next question, please.
Do you ever publish any of your, I assume, beer recipes? Have you given them out to homebrewers?
Publish not so much. We put on the website like what goes into them. But if you write me an email at chris@pohjalabeer.com, then I'm always happy to like shoot you over the recipes that we've got.
There you go.
So yeah.
Homebrewers have approached us. Chris has replied.
Yep.
You know,
Always happy
all
to.
depends how you ask.
It's basically yeah.
Cool. Rafael, we won't answer this one, I'm afraid, Rafael, because we have talked about it extensively for an hour, I think, earlier on. If you rewind to when we were drinking the first Baltic Porter, the Cheesecake Island, we talk about the differences between Baltic Porter and Imperial Stout. Is there anything to add there, guys, or you think we've covered it?
Yeah, I would say one thing is like it depends very much on the brewery. Like for us, we have a sort of philosophical difference between an Imperial Stout and Imperial Baltic Porter in how we brew those beers and what ingredients we use in those beers. But it's obviously a very fluid sort of thing. So some other breweries may have it the other way around. You know, I mean, when you're looking at like the porter versus stout argument in beer, then a lot of breweries will say, okay, well, porter must be the roastier one, and others will say stout must be the roastier one. So you know, everyone has their own interpretation, and historically, both of them are totally valid. So for us, we have our own approach to what is an Imperial Stout and what's an Imperial Baltic Porter, but the other one might be different. So unfortunately, it's kind of can't really comment much there. I know we have a difference in our barrel-aged ones, but it might not hold true for everyone else. Yeah.
Alrighty. Ken asked about traditional Estonian food. Is there a national dish?
It is. I mean, as Estonian culture and history, we've been influenced by many countries. But I would say that the cuisine-wise, the strongest influence is coming from Germany and Russia. And local coastal food is just fish and potatoes, you know. So it's again, it is not. When you go traditionally, when I put out I would lay out to you the traditional dishes, they would not be so appealing. But again, the modern cuisine, what has taken the traditional Estonian fish, potato, and pork kind of cuisine, it's great. And again, now the modern Estonian cuisine is very much the local produce based, and it's a little bit like our forest series steak. So there's a lot of good local fresh produce available. So.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps Chris, as a you know, somebody has not lived the whole life, can comment on the food side.
I think I've got a better question for Chris, from Tommy Olsen about is there a farmhouse beer culture in Estonia?
There absolutely is, and I would say it's been kept alive most strongly over on the islands of Estonia. Saaremaa, Hiiumaa, they've
Koduolu.
Yeah, literally translates as home beer. And if you know Sahti from Finland, it's kind of similar to that, but
Very
like,
Sahti-like,
yeah. We haven't personally made any because it's kind of like
yeasty kind of,
Yeah, it's very much been kept alive, so it's not like it's something that we felt needs to be revived, because if you go to the islands, you can go to many places.
There are brewers on the island doing that stuff way better than we could ever do.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why we never took a try on that.
But there's a very interesting local culture about it. I think actually I remember one of the guys, Mark Carpenter from Anchor in San Francisco, actually came over, and the whole purpose of his whole trip was to like see the island farmhouse brewing. He was even like super happy to smuggle some of the yeast out of one of those places, their own like farmhouse culture. So it's very interesting, but it's not something that we're going to do because others do it better.
Yeah.
You can still come to Estonia and get a hold of it quite easily. So yeah.
There we go. Nick Owen, super quick question. How much beer do you guys make a year?
So in this place here, then we've done around about 1 million liters a year. So yeah, roughly that. We've scaled up so that this place here, our last brewery was much smaller. This place here should be able to last for more than that. So, this is our kind of forever home brewery. That's what we think of it as.
Forever and ever.
Yes.
Did you answer the question?
I am flicking through. We've had some super chats. That was Chris's. There was another one. Sorry everybody. We're desperately trying to keep up with all the questions that are coming in. John Hoth just wants to say he loves the bleached tie-dye.
It looks a bit like the camo. Kind of.
There's a similarity there. And Magnus says Black Jam is epic. So many good beers from Põhjala lately. And the Cellar Series was much appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Magnus. Hope to see you at Brewing.
How long is barrel age? How long are you? I guess it must depend, but typically.
That's a very tricky one, especially since we get more and more into blending, because this, I think, is a combo of nearly 2.5-year-old, some in bourbon. In Pedro Jimenez, it was in there for around about 14 months, maybe. And then the remainder of the bourbon was something like 9 months. But again, it's tricky to answer with the with the blends sometimes. So let's say normally we're around about 9 months. That works out pretty well for us. But certain barrels can be longer or shorter. Like first fill cognac can actually be like a lot shorter than you might expect. Maybe 3 months is already more than enough for that.
I just wanted to say it's like basically 3 months is minimum. Then we start tasting what's happening, and then it's like a big long glass, like how you call it, like the jar, but injector, and then you get some beer out, and you do your tests, and then you do your tasting, and then you also start to really do a little blending. Even with these little tests, that's how it starts.
So Neil managed to send a super chat without a question attached. I guess he's asking what your favorite beer you've ever made is.
No, he's actually asking not the question, but he's making a good talking point. That 10 Apple Stout that he's mentioning is one of our favorite beers that we ever brewed. We had most fun of doing. I think Chris agrees. This is with our dearest friend Christian Gadiente, chef of Spruce from Two L's. This is a collaboration with Two L, and this time it was a chef and the brewmaster doing a beer together. So fantastic process. We could have a 1-hour show about this beer, seriously. But Chris, have a word.
Yeah, so 10 Apple Stout, that was brewed using 10 different varieties of apples and in 10 different formats. So we went very deep in terms of like apple blossom, apple juice during fermentation, aged apples,
frozen apples,
aged in Calvados barrels with like smoked apple wood going in. Just an insane beer, but ridiculously good fun all the way through the process. So yeah, that's pretty high up, and it's pretty cool that you've had that beer. Actually, it's very, very high on my list as well. If we're talking our personal favorites, I have a very, very strong soft spot for Talve rum barrel aged, which was it was a winter sort of special 2 years ago, I think it was last year.
More.
Yeah. aged in rum and bourbon, and that was with cardamom and coconut, toasted coconut. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people don't like cardamom. The cardamom lover group is much smaller than I imagined it to be, but I still think that's one of my favorite beers we've ever made.
And again, it's if somebody has that one, it's still changing.
Yeah, it's got like super big like menthol-y notes coming through now. It's really interesting. Yeah, but what about you? What's one of your favorites?
I mean, the beer wise, for me, it's actually rather simple. It's XO. That's our very first beer that aged in cognac barrels. It's just like a very simple beer in that sense. Robust Baltic porter aged in elegant cognac barrels, and for me, that is a beer that I go back. With no doubt, I know where I'm going. I'm going to have a nice evening with a good friend. But I'm all excited about like 10 apple stout really is high up because of the process. Sometimes it's not even about the taste, but about the background of the beer, with who we brewed it, how was it brewed, what ingredient, how hard was the ingredient to hunt down. And sometimes we have to put out beers with just a commercial price, but we have put like 2 times more ingredient. I mean, we're not making always money with some beers, Sometimes we go crazy, and those are the fun beers,
Another favorite.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go on.
So Matthew, we just had a super chat from Matthew. He's just saying, will the beers from today be available to purchase afterwards, or was it a one-time thing? All the beers that were in the tasting pack that was sold for this, they should still be available. Cave Direct to the distributor that bring it in. Beer merchants will have it, but so will many of all the independent bottle shops that Cave Direct stock. So wherever you bought these beers from, hopefully some of them will still be in stock. Maybe not all of them, but lots of them should still be around. Which of the beers that we drank tonight are not one-offs? Is it just the Pilky?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so you got one shot at getting it, but there will be still plenty in the UK. Pilky's always available, but it seems like you guys do lots of variations on a theme, so there's always going to be similar beers with different nuances coming out.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That was a very, very good question that just came in, actually. Russian craft beer scene, I don't know as much about as I would like because I haven't been able to make it over there. I wasn't able to get a visa, and then the whole stuff came.
They didn't let him in.
Pandemic came in. Yeah, exactly. The soup beer scene though is pretty interesting. A friend just came back from there at one point, and we tried a few. We had a borscht one, which was like not my favorite, but I understand that there's many different varieties of them. So, just got to find the right one. But there was a really, really good like Georgian style soup beer. And that was ridiculously good. It was like, for you guys in the UK, the whole Bloody Mary after a night of drinking. That's kind of like this, except with a load more spices and in a beer form. And it was ridiculously good. It's one of the best things I've drank. I have no idea if it was beer. I don't care. It was delicious. Yeah. So very, very interesting. The Russian craft scene seems like pretty vibrant, pretty potent. So I'd love to try more whenever we can.
Amazing.
So no soup beer coming from us anytime soon.
No hernes soup.
Is it soupy? Is it thick and soupy? Does it have like a soupy consistency to it?
It depends. I'm definitely not the best person to answer this. But like I've heard from a load of people that some breweries literally just boil a giant pot of soup, condense it down almost to a syrup, and then dose it into the beer.
Johnny, we've got to make one of those, mate, for craft.
Yeah, next homebrew. Next homebrew, soup beer. What a bizarre but exciting way to approach a beer. I'm blown. I had no idea about soup beer from Russia. I'm going to have to do
it for me as well, actually.
It is a thing, and it is bizarrely popular.
I mean, I've seen on our Discord forum recently, somebody bought a beer. I think it was a Belgian beer, and it was a gazpacho beer. So it was a tomato and basil and something else beer. I have no idea what to make of this. I'm not going to judge it till I try it. It sounds bonkers. But...
No, sorry, Sam. No, it doesn't sound good.
I mean, I think I've had some of those already in the early days of New England IPA.
I was on board with the Oxtail Stout, but the Minestrone IPA, sorry. You lost me.
Right, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. A lot of the questions that have been asked during the Q&A, we did answer earlier on. So, somebody asked about how to open the beers with the wax easiest. Go back to about 1 hour 40, where we did that. The name of Pohjala was explained right at the start, and about 2 hours 10. And around the aging question, a couple of people asking if they could age it for a century. You can't age for a century, probably, if you're of legal age. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But otherwise, I mean, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to chat to you guys. Oh, we just had a super chat. So before I wrap up, let's take that one from Sean Brewer. Chris, it's very brave of you to leave home.
Oh no, I'm on the spot now. I don't know. It's tough to say because I've always been traveling around quite a bit. But what I enjoy is one of the big things is Estonia is so damn close to nature. It's insane. Like from the middle of the city, you can drive out 20, 30 minutes and you're in the absolute countryside. You can't hear or see a thing almost. That is one of the best possible things. You can always take a chill out moment and it takes no time whatsoever. Can't really say that there's much that I don't enjoy. So the second part of that I can't really answer. But yeah, it's kind of it's very fun exploring a different culture and learning how to be in it. Let's say just pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. That's always something that in craft beer I think is important, and in personal life too. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope that maybe we won't be emigrating anytime soon, but hopefully we can travel again and immerse ourselves. And I've been so amazed to hear about the farmhouse brewing culture, the forest culture, the amazing different ingredients you guys are able to brew within Estonia. And I mean, me and Brad need to come over as soon as is legally allowed.
I've got another thing about Estonia, which I think is true. Obviously, we talked about forests and stuff, but I think, am I right in thinking you've got the most peat bogs in the world, or the most sort of marshland in the world, or something?
Oh, yes, right? Right on money.
Come on!
And they are beautiful, and they have been made so accessible because they have these little baths inside them, which is just like a wooden boards, 2 wooden boards put in the middle of the swampland, and you can walk through just kilometers and have such a scenic views. And when you are early enough to get up to see the sunrise up there, it's just magnificent. And also you can see so many animals. Yeah. It's a nature person's paradise.
Yeah. I watched something about that, and I also, on the same program, I think there was something about wrestling in the marshland. Is wrestling big in Estonia?
I mean, the Estonia has always been strong in the wrestling, discus throwing, heavyweights lifting, all that stuff, But yeah, we don't not wrestle in the wetlands.
Not in the brewery. You don't wrestle.
It's a little bit you get stuck there. You can actually it's something that you don't want to really step too much away from because it's just it can be bottomless.
I'm glad we finally found the end of Brad's niches. He's right, Estonian craft beer, veganism, forests, marshland, wrestling in marshland. No, don't be ridiculous. We finally found the point where Brad's internet researching had to...
Well, it's not internet researching. This is, I've watched documentaries about this stuff, Johnny.
On what, Brad?
Real.
The internet.
No, not on the internet. No. I watched a documentary about a festival, a heavy metal festival in Estonia. I watched.
You need to send the link to me. Please send the link about the festival.
I watched an episode, I think it was Booze Traveller, where he went to the bogs, the marshland in Estonia, and it looks beautiful. That was an American TV show I watched. So this isn't internet research. These are genuine things I've watched over the years. I'm not cheating here. There's no cheating going on, Johnny.
I believe you.
You guys gotta have that BrewDog plane and come over.
Yes, well,
happen.
I'll email James Watt tomorrow. I promise you.
We can organize some marsh wrestling if you make it up.
If that's what you want, Brad.
Just for you.
I'm gonna whipping myself with the birch. Get him beat.
Brad wrestling himself in marshland with Jennifer.
My granddad was a champion Greco-Roman wrestler. Would you believe?
All right.
There you go.
You will feel very home in Estonia. He would have some sparring. He would have some sparring partners here.
Yeah. I'm descended from like British strongmen, but I'm not a British strongman, but I am descended. There you go.
Well, I mean, on that note, I don't know what that note was, but I think we should call it quits there. Thanks to everyone that's tuned in. You've been absolutely amazing. Thanks for all the comments. I don't understand half the comments that are now happening.
What's all this Pat chat? I don't know
I don't know who Pat is or was, or Jim. I don't know what's going on, but we appreciate you all joining us. We peaked at over 500 people, which is our second biggest stream ever. So massive props to Põhjala. Like, you've got so much love in the UK and around the world as well. So yeah, all that's left to say is thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'd love to come visit you as soon as is legal. And I'm sure that once we're offline, there'll be a little after party of chats and fun happening in our Discord forum, which you can join for $1 a month. So please do. And of course, there's going to be lots of Põhjala beer coming in through Cave Direct for many years to come. And the beers we've had have been absolutely stellar tonight. Really, really special. And I'll be picking up some more and picking up some cans as well soon. So I'm just going to charge my glass a little bit for a final cheers. I'm on the last now of the Black Jam. So, yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. Thank you to everyone in the comments, and we'll see you for a live show in another month and hopefully in person one day.
Thank you so much.
Never sex.
We had so much fun. Thank you, guys.
Never sex. Bye.
Never sex.
Bye.